In 1862, the Port of London handled more cargo than any place on earth. Half the goods moving across the globe passed through its docks, and the men who worked those docks lived in some of the darkest, most dangerous streets in the British Empire. Tonight, you're one of them. Here's what it was really like to survive in Victorian London's Docklands. As you get comfortable and the lights go down, I'd love to know where in the world you are drifting off from tonight. It is always grounding to see how many of us are here, sharing this quiet moment across different time zones. If you want to return to this space for our next story, you are very welcome to join the channel. Now, get comfortable, adjust your pillow, pull your blanket a little closer, because where we're going, comfort is a distant memory. Where we're going, a warm bed and a full stomach are luxuries that most people will never know. You're about to become Daniel Webb. 23 years old, born in a village in Kent you'll never see again. Your father died of consumption when you were 15. Your mother followed 2 winters later, worn down by grief and work and the slow grind of poverty. You've been working other men's farms ever since, sleeping in barns, eating what you could scrounge, watching the years slip past with nothing to show for them. Then your Uncle Billy wrote from Maidstone, told you about the docks, told you about the money a strong young man could make loading and unloading ships, told you about opportunities, about a future. So you sold everything you owned that was worth selling. You walked to Rochester. You paid 3 shillings for passage on a river barge heading up the Thames. And now, in the grey light of an April morning in 1862, you're standing on the deck of that barge as it rounds the great bend of the river at Greenwich. And for the first time in your life, you're looking at London. Nothing could have prepared you for this. The river stretches out before you like a highway of brown water, impossibly wide, choked with traffic. Ships everywhere. More ships than you've ever seen in your life, more ships than you knew existed. Massive wooden vessels with masts that seem to scrape the grey sky. Smaller boats darting between them like water insects. Steam tugs belching black smoke. Barges piled high with coal, with timber, with bales of cotton and crates of goods from places you can't even pronounce. And the docks themselves. Good God, the docks. You'd heard stories. Everyone in your village had heard stories about the London docks. Your uncle told you about them on winter nights by the fire, his empty sleeve pinned to his shoulder, his eyes going distant with memory. The East India Company started using these waters back in 1614, he said, anchoring their trading vessels at Blackwall. 250 years of ships coming and going. 250 years of men building fortunes and breaking their backs. The West India Docks, he said, the London Docks, the East India Docks, the Victoria Dock, newest and largest of them all. Names that meant nothing to you then. Names that will mean everything to you soon. But seeing them is something else entirely. Massive walls of dark brick rise up from the waterline, stretching back further than you can see. Warehouses 5, 6 stories tall, their windows like dead eyes staring out at the river. Cranes like giant metal insects, swinging loads through the air with a screech of chain and pulley. The constant clatter and crash of cargo being moved. Men swarming everywhere, thousands of them, tens of thousands. An army of workers, moving goods from every corner of the British Empire. The smell hits you next. It's not one smell, it's everything at once. The muddy brown stink of the river, thick and organic, carrying centuries of London's waste. The sharp bite of coal smoke from 100 chimneys. Something sweet and rotting, maybe from the sugar warehouses. Something chemical, acrid, that burns the back of your throat. And underneath it all, the salt tang of the sea, carried upriver on the wind. You breathe through your mouth, but you can taste it anyway. The barge bumps against the stone stairs at Wapping, and the bargeman jerks his thumb toward the shore. Off you go, lad. Welcome to the greatest city in the world. You shoulder your canvas bag, everything you own in the world stuffed inside, and you step onto the slick stone steps. They're worn smooth by centuries of feet. You climb up toward the street, and London swallows you whole. The noise is overwhelming. Voices shouting in a dozen accents, the clatter of iron wheels on cobblestones, the screech of pulleys, the crash of cargo, the bark of dogs, the cry of seagulls overhead, a child screaming somewhere, men arguing, someone laughing, a bell ringing, all of it layered on top of itself until it becomes a kind of roar, a living sound that never stops. You press yourself against a brick wall just to catch your breath, just to get your bearings. You're on Wapping High Street. At least, that's what the faded sign on the corner says. The street is narrow, barely wide enough for a cart to pass, and the buildings crowd in on either side like they're trying to squeeze you out. 4 stories, 5 stories tall. Windows black with soot. Laundry strung between them on sagging lines. The cobblestones beneath your feet are slick with something you don't want to examine too closely. The people. You've never seen so many people. Never imagined so many people could exist in one place. They stream past you in both directions, shouldering through the crowds, everyone moving with purpose, everyone going somewhere. Sailors in striped shirts, dockers in flat caps and heavy boots, women in threadbare shawls carrying baskets, children darting between legs, a man pushing a handcart piled with fish, another leading a donkey loaded with sacks. Everyone looking straight ahead, no one making eye contact. You're invisible here. Just another body in the crowd. Just another young man come to the docks looking for work. You start walking. You don't know where you're going. You have a name, that's all. A name your uncle gave you before you left home. A man called Jeremiah Slade, who runs a lodging house in Shadwell. Your uncle worked the docks years ago, before he came back to Kent with one arm gone and stories he never finished telling. He said Jeremiah would look after you, set you right, give you a bed until you found your feet. So you're looking for Shadwell. You're looking for Jeremiah Slade. You stop a docker with arms like tree trunks and ask for directions. He looks at you like you've spoken Chinese. Shadwell? His accent is so thick you can barely understand him. Follow the wall east, past the London dock gates. You'll smell it before you see it. He laughs at his own joke and walks on. Follow the wall east. You turn and walk alongside the massive brick wall of the London docks. It's higher than a house, topped with broken glass set in mortar to keep out thieves. Every few hundred yards there's a gate, guarded by men in uniforms who eye everyone who passes. Through the gaps you can see glimpses of the docks inside. Mountains of cargo, forests of masts, a whole world hidden behind those walls. A world of commerce and labour that moves the machinery of empire. Your uncle told you about these walls. He said they were built to stop the theft that once plagued the docks. Before the walls went up, he said, half the cargo coming into London disappeared before it could be counted. Smugglers and thieves worked day and night, in league with corrupt officials and crooked merchants. The West India Dock Company finally built their fortress in 1802, and the others followed. Walls within walls, guards within guards, order imposed on chaos. But the chaos didn't go away. It just moved outside the walls, into the streets you're walking now. The streets get narrower as you walk, the buildings get older, the crowd gets rougher. You pass a pub called the Town of Ramsgate, packed with sailors even though it's barely noon. Through the open door, you catch the smell of beer and tobacco and unwashed bodies. Someone's singing, someone else is arguing. A woman with painted lips leans in the doorway and watches you pass with dead eyes. Keep walking. You pass a chandler's shop, its windows stuffed with rope and canvas and lanterns. A pawnbroker, with a faded sign showing 3 golden bulls. A cook shop, with steam rising from iron pots in the window, the smell of boiled meat making your stomach clench with hunger. You haven't eaten since yesterday, but you only have a few coins in your pocket. You can't waste them on food, not yet. You cross a bridge over a narrow dock inlet, the water below black and still and coated with a film of oil. Dead things float in it. You don't look too closely. And then you're in Shadwell. You know it immediately. Not because of any sign, but because the air changes, gets thicker somehow. The buildings press closer, the streets twist and turn, branching off into narrow alleys and dark courts that seem to lead nowhere. The people here move differently, slower, watching. This is Sailor Town. This is where the men who come off the ships live and drink and spend their wages. This is where fortunes disappear in a single night, where young men arrive with pockets full of pay and leave with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Every other building seems to be a pub or a boarding house or something even less respectable. Women stand in doorways watching the street. Men gather in small groups on corners, doing nothing you can see, but everything you can imagine. Your uncle told you about Shadwell, about Limehouse just to the east, about the whole stretch of riverside parishes where sailors and dockers and men without trades have lived for centuries. He told you about the criminal gangs, the press gangs that used to drag drunk men off to the Navy, the thieves and con men who prey on anyone with money. He told you to be careful. You're being careful, but careful doesn't count for much in a place like this. This is not a place for strangers. You feel eyes on you. From windows, from doorways, from men leaning against walls with nothing apparent to do but wait. You keep your hand on the strap of your bag and walk faster. Jeremiah Slade's lodging house, your uncle said, is on a street called Butcher Row, near the old stairs that lead down to the river. You ask a woman selling apples from a basket where you might find it. She squints at you, calculating. Slade's place? That's down by the water. Take the next left, then right at the dead dog. You'll know it when you see it. You take the next left. The street narrows to barely wider than your shoulders. The buildings lean toward each other overhead until barely any light reaches the cobblestones below. The smell here is different. Human. Close. The stink of too many bodies packed into too little space. The sour reek of gin. The sharp ammonia of urine from the gutter that runs down the middle of the street. You're in the courts now. The places respectable people never go. A man emerges from a doorway ahead of you and blocks your path. He's missing most of his teeth, and what remains are brown. His coat is held together with string. His eyes are yellow and calculating. Lost, are we? Your heart hammers in your chest. Looking for Jeremiah Slade. I was told his house is down here. The man studies you, studies your bag, measures you up. You're young, but you've worked farms all your life. You're not small, not weak. Maybe he decides you're not worth the trouble. Maybe he decides you're telling the truth. Slade's place is 3 doors down, the one with the blue door. Tell him Mickey Farrell sent you. He steps aside, still watching. Welcome to Shadwell, country boy. You walk past him without looking back. 3 doors down, a blue door, faded almost to grey, hanging slightly crooked in its frame. Above it, a hand-painted sign that reads, Lodgings, respectable persons only, in letters so faded you can barely make them out. You knock. Nothing happens. You knock again, harder. Footsteps inside, slow and heavy, the scrape of a bolt being drawn back. The door opens a crack, and a single eye peers out at you from the darkness. What do you want? I'm looking for Mr. Jeremiah Slade. My name's Daniel Webb. My uncle Billy Webb said you might have a bed. The eye narrows. Billy Webb from Maidstone. That's him, sir. A long pause. Then the door opens wider, revealing a man in his 50s, heavy-set, with grey whiskers and suspicious eyes. He looks you up and down, studies your bag, studies your face. "Billy's nephew, eh? He wrote me you might be coming. Come in then, before you let all the warm air out." You step inside and the door closes behind you. The hallway is dark and narrow, lit by a single candle in a holder on the wall. The wallpaper is peeling. The floorboards creak beneath your feet. Somewhere deeper in the house you can hear voices, men's voices, low and murmuring. Jeremiah Slade leads you down the hall and into a small back room that serves as his office. A desk covered in papers, a single chair, a fire dying in the grate. He gestures for you to sit on a wooden stool in the corner. "So, you've come to work the docks, have you?" "Yes, sir." He grunts, leans back in his chair, studies you with eyes that have seen 1,000 young men just like you walk through that blue door. "You know how the docks work, boy?" "I know they hire men to load and unload ships. I know it's hard work, but it pays fair." Slade laughs. It's not a pleasant sound. "Pays fair, that's rich." He leans forward. "Let me tell you how the docks really work, country boy, because your uncle clearly didn't tell you enough." He lights a pipe with a match, puffing until it catches, filling the small room with bitter smoke. "There's two kinds of men who work the docks, permanent and casual. The permanents, they've got it made. Steady work, steady pay. They're the ones who've been here for years, decades. They know the foreman, they know the contractors. They're in, and they're not making room for the likes of you." He points at you with the stem of his pipe. You're casual, which means every morning you're going to join the crush at the dock gates. Thousands of men, all fighting for work. The foreman comes out and he picks who he wants. If you get picked, you work. If you don't, you go home empty-handed. And most days, you don't get picked. Your stomach sinks. "How do I get picked?" Slade shrugs. "That's the question, isn't it? Some men have arrangements with the foreman, payments, understandings. Some men have friends who put in a word. Some men are just big enough and strong enough that the foreman can't ignore them. And some men," he pauses, "some men have been standing at those gates for years and never get picked twice in a week. So what do I do? Tomorrow morning, 4 o'clock, you go to the gates of the Victoria Dock. That's the newest, the biggest, always needs men. You stand on the stones with everyone else, you make yourself seen, and you pray." He stands up, signalling the conversation is over. "Bed's 2 shillings a week, in advance. That gets you a mattress in the common room, 1 meal a day, and use of the privy out back. No women, no fighting, no gin in the house. You want that, you find it elsewhere. Questions?" You have 1,000 questions, but you only ask one. "Is there food now? I haven't eaten since yesterday." Something softens in Slade's weathered face, just for a moment. "There's bread and drippings in the kitchen. Help yourself. Then get some sleep. You'll need it." He leads you back through the house to the kitchen, a cramped room with a black stove and a scarred wooden table. A loaf of bread sits on the table, half gone, alongside a pot of brownish drippings. You tear off a chunk of bread, smear it with the drippings and eat it so fast you barely taste it. Then another chunk, then another. Slade watches from the doorway. "Slow down, boy. Food's not going anywhere." But it might. In this place, everything might. That's the lesson you're already learning. When you've eaten enough to stop the shaking in your hands, Slade leads you up a narrow staircase to the common room. It's a long, low space under the eaves, lit by a single dirty window. A dozen mattresses line the walls, most of them occupied by men in various states of sleep. The air is thick with the smell of bodies, of sweat, of the sour exhalations of men who work too hard and eat too little. "That one's yours." Slade points to an empty mattress in the corner. "Get some sleep. I'll wake you at 3:30. 3:30. That gives you maybe 8 hours. You haven't slept in a real bed in 3 days. You haven't slept indoors in a week. You drop your bag beside the mattress and lower yourself onto it. It's thin, lumpy. Something rustles inside it that you don't want to think about. But it's flat, and it's horizontal, and that's all you need right now. You lie on your back and stare at the ceiling. Through the dirty window you can see a slice of grey London sky. Somewhere outside the city roars on. The docks never sleep. The work never stops. Ships coming and going. Cargo being moved. Money being made. And tomorrow, you're going to be part of it. Tomorrow, you're going to stand at those gates with thousands of other men and pray that someone picks you, that someone gives you a chance. This is your life now. This is the London Docklands in 1862, the greatest port in the world, the heart of an empire. Every day, ships arrive from India, China, Australia, Africa, the Americas. They bring tea and silk and spices and sugar and timber and cotton. They bring wealth beyond imagining. And they need men to move it all. Men like you. Tomorrow, you'll find out if you have what it takes. Tomorrow, you'll stand at the dock gates with thousands of other desperate men and find out if this new life is going to work out, or if you've made the worst mistake of your existence and you're lying on a mattress full of bedbugs in a lodging house in Shadwell, listening to the snores of strangers, trying not to think about what happens if no one ever picks you, trying not to think about what happens if you end up like so many others, drifting from one casual job to the next, never quite getting ahead, never quite making it, slowly sliding down until there's nowhere left to fall. But that's a problem for tomorrow. Right now, for the first time in days, you're warm, you're dry, you're fed, you have a roof over your head and a place to sleep. In the Docklands, that makes you one of the lucky ones. Your eyes grow heavy. The sounds of the city fade to a distant murmur. Outside somewhere, a woman is singing, a man is shouting, a baby is crying. The endless symphony of London's poorest neighbourhoods, playing on through the night as it has for centuries. But it all seems very far away now, very small, very unimportant. The mattress stops feeling quite so lumpy. Your body, exhausted from days of travel, finally lets go. The tension drains out of your shoulders, your back, your legs. You sink deeper into the thin mattress, and the darkness behind your eyelids grows soft and welcoming. And just before sleep takes you, you hear the bells of some distant church chiming the hour. St. George in the east, probably, or maybe St. Anne's in Limehouse. Churches that have watched over these streets for generations. 8 o'clock. You have 7.5 hours until your new life begins. 7.5 hours until you find out what kind of man you really are. The darkness pulls you under, and you let it. Someone is shaking your shoulder. Up. Get up. It's time. You open your eyes to darkness. Complete darkness. For a moment you don't know where you are. Then the smell hits you. Bodies, sweat, the sour reek of the lodging house. And it all comes rushing back. London, the docks, Jeremiah Slade. Move yourself, country boy. Gates open at 5. You want to be there by 4. You sit up on the thin mattress, every muscle in your body screaming. The floor is cold beneath your feet. Around you, other men are stirring, coughing, muttering. Someone lights a candle, and the room fills with flickering shadows. You pull on your boots in the dark, grab your cap, your coat, leave your bag tucked under the mattress. Nothing in it worth stealing, but you hide it anyway. Old habits. Downstairs, Slade is waiting by the door with a tin cup of something hot. Tea, maybe, or just hot water with something brown in it. You drink it anyway, burning your tongue, grateful for the warmth spreading through your chest. Remember what I told you, Slade says. Victoria Dock, east along the commercial road. Follow the crowd. You'll find it. You nod. Your throat is too dry to speak. And Daniel, Slade's hand on your arm, just for a second. Don't let them see you're green. Stand tall. Look like you belong. That's half the battle. Then you're out the door, into the street, into the darkness. The cold hits you like a fist. April in London. Not quite winter, not quite spring. A damp cold that seeps into your bones and settles there. Your breath clouds in front of your face. The cobblestones are slick with dew, or something else. You don't look down. You're not alone. Men are emerging from doorways all along the street, from lodging houses, from tenements, from cramped rooms above shops. They move in silence mostly, shadows flowing through shadows, all heading the same direction, east, toward the docks. You fall in with the crowd, let them carry you along. Nobody speaks, nobody looks at anyone else. Just men walking through the darkness, each one alone with his thoughts, his fears, his desperate hope that today will be the day. Some of these men have been doing this for years, decades. You can see it in the way they walk, the set of their shoulders, the blank expressions on their faces. They know what's coming. They've done this 1,000 times before. Wake in the dark, walk in the cold, fight for a chance to work, go home empty-handed more often than not. This is what your life is now. This is what you've chosen. The streets widen as you walk, the buildings get newer, bigger. You pass factories that haven't started their morning shift yet, their chimneys cold and silent, warehouses locked up tight behind iron gates. A railway line, the tracks gleaming dully in the faint light from a gas lamp. The smell of coal and iron and something chemical you can't identify. And then you see them. The gates. The Victoria Dock gates rise up out of the darkness like the entrance to some kind of fortress. Iron and stone, massive. And in front of them, a crowd. No, not a crowd. A mob. Hundreds of men, maybe thousands, packed together in the space before the gates, shoulder to shoulder, jostling and shoving. The noise hits you before you even get close. The murmur of voices, the shuffle of boots on stone, the occasional shout, the cough and spit of men who've been standing in the cold for hours. You push your way into the edge of the crowd and stop. You can't go any further. The bodies are packed too tight. Men press against you from all sides. You can smell their breath, feel their body heat. Somewhere up ahead, you can see torches burning, but you can't see what they're illuminating. First time, the voice comes from beside you. You turn. A man about your age, maybe a year or two older, thin face, sharp eyes, a cap pulled low over his forehead. That obvious? He grins. You've got that look, like a sheep that's wandered into a wolf den. He sticks out his hand. I'm Ned Holloway. Daniel Webb. His handshake is quick and firm. Stick close to me, Daniel Webb. I'll show you how this works. The crowd shifts, surges forward. You're carried along with it, helpless as a leaf in a river. Someone's elbow catches you in the ribs. Someone else steps on your foot. You grit your teeth and push back, trying to hold your ground. Easy, Ned says. Save your strength. The real fight's coming. What do you mean? But before he can answer, a shout goes up from somewhere near the gates. The crowd surges again, harder this time. Men are shoving now, really shoving. You see one man go down and disappear under trampling feet. Here we go, Ned mutters. Stay on your feet. Whatever happens, stay on your feet. The gates are opening. You can't see them from here, but you can hear the grinding of iron on stone. The crowd pushes forward like a living thing, a single organism with 1,000 desperate hearts. You're swept along with it, fighting for every inch of ground, trying not to fall, trying not to get crushed. And then, somehow, you're at the front. A wooden platform has been set up just inside the gates. On it stands a man in a bowler hat and a heavy coat. The foreman. He's got a list in one hand and a cane in the other, and he's surveying the crowd below him like a farmer surveying livestock at market. This is the call on. This is where your fate gets decided. Behind the foreman you can see glimpses of the dock itself, mountains of crates, the masts of ships, men already at work, the lucky ones, the permanent staff who don't have to go through this ritual every morning. They've got steady jobs, steady pay, steady lives, everything you want, everything that seems impossibly far away right now. Right then, the foreman shouts. His voice cuts through the noise like a knife. I need 50 men, 50, no more. Sugar warehouse, hard work, full day, 3 and 6. 3 shillings and 6pence. A full day's wages. Enough to pay for your bed, your food, and still have something left over. Enough to survive another week. Enough to matter. The crowd erupts. Men are screaming now, screaming and waving their arms and pushing forward, trying to get the foreman's attention. You're pushed and shoved from every direction. An elbow catches your jaw and you taste blood. Someone grabs your coat and tries to pull you back, and you spin around and shove them away. Me! Over here! Pick me! I've got experience, 20 years. Please, sir, I've got children. The foreman points with his cane. 1 man, 2, 3. Each one pushes forward through the crowd to climb the platform and disappear through the gates. Lucky. Chosen. Saved. You're waving your arms. You're shouting. You're doing everything the men around you are doing, but the foreman's eyes pass over you like you're not even there. 10 men chosen. 20. 30. Come on, Ned mutters beside you. He's waving too, but there's something practiced about it. Something strategic. He's not just flailing. He's making eye contact, standing taller, making himself visible. 40 men. 45. The foreman's cane sweeps across the crowd. Points, points, points. 50. That's it, the foreman shouts. 50 men. The rest of you clear off. Try again tomorrow. The gates slam shut. And just like that, it's over. You stand there, stunned. Your arms are still raised. Your mouth is still open. Around you, men are drifting away. Some of them cursing under their breath. Some of them silent, their faces carved from stone. Some of them just standing there with the same blank look you imagine is on your own face. A few are crying. Grown men. Crying like children. Because they didn't get picked and their families won't eat tonight. You didn't get picked. You came all the way from Kent. You sold everything you owned. You slept on a mattress full of bugs. And you didn't get picked. The foreman didn't even look at you. Not once. You were screaming, waving, doing everything you could to get his attention. And he looked right through you, like you were made of glass. Don't take it personal. Ned is still beside you, hands shoved in his pockets, breath steaming in the cold morning air. Nobody gets picked their first time. Well, almost nobody. The foremen have their favourites. Men they know, men who pay them off, men who've proved themselves. You're just a face in the crowd right now, one of thousands. So what do? You come back tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Eventually, someone notices you, or you get lucky, or, he shrugs, or you find another way. Another way? Ned's eyes slide sideways, checking who's listening. There's other gates, other docks. Some of them the foremen aren't so picky. Some of them you can get in if you know who to talk to. If you've got a few coins to spread around. He pauses. Or if you're willing to do the jobs nobody else wants. What kind of jobs? The dangerous ones. The dirty ones. The ones that pay well because half the men who do them end up dead or crippled. He sees the look on your face and laughs. Relax, country boy. I'm not saying you should do it, just telling you how things work down here. The crowd has mostly cleared now, A few men linger by the gates, maybe hoping for a second call that isn't coming. The sky is starting to lighten in the east. Another day in London, another day without work. "Come on," Ned says. "I know a place that does a decent breakfast. Cheap too. You look like you could use it." You follow him away from the dock gates, through streets that are starting to come alive with the morning. Carts rattling past, shops opening their shutters, women heading to work in the factories, children playing in the gutters. The cookshop Ned leads you to is barely more than a hole in the wall. A counter, a few stools, a woman with arms like a blacksmith serving bowls of something grey and steaming. "Two," Ned says, dropping coins on the counter. "And bread." The woman slides 2 bowls across. Porridge, you think, or something like it. There's a lump of something in it that might be meat. You don't ask questions, you just eat. "So," Ned watches you shovel the food into your mouth. "Where'd you come from?" "Before London, I mean." "Kent. Little village near Maidstone. Worked on farms mostly." "Family?" "Dead. All of them." Ned nods like this is the most normal thing in the world. In the Docklands, maybe it is. "I'm from Whitechapel myself, born and bred. My old man worked the docks, his old man before him. Stevedores, both of them. Good steady work." He stares into his empty bowl. "Then the companies started bringing in their own men, cutting deals with contractors, squeezing out the independents. My old man lost his place, went casual, drank himself to death inside of 3 years. He looks up. "I've been standing at those gates since I was 14, 8 years now." "8 years? And you're still casual?" "It's not easy to get permanent. The foremen, the contractors, they've got their men, their people, families that have been working the same docks for generations. You've got to prove yourself, got to be the best, the strongest, the most reliable, the one they can't do without." He shrugs. "Or you've got to know somebody, have connections, pay the right people. I don't have any of that, so I do what I can." You finish your porridge. The warmth spreads through your body, pushing back the cold that's settled in your bones. Outside, the street is getting busier, more men heading to more gates, more desperate faces. What happens now? Now? We try again. Different dock, different foreman. The London dock opens at 6, the West India at 7, East India after that. You make the rounds, you try your luck. Maybe you get picked somewhere. Maybe you don't. Ned stands up, stretches, cracks his knuckles. "That's the game, country boy. That's how it works down here. Some days you eat, some days you don't." You follow him back out into the streets. The sun is fully up now, pale and watery behind a layer of clouds. The docks are coming alive around you. You can hear the creak of cranes, the shouts of men, the splash and rumble of cargo being moved. Somewhere behind those walls, men are working, earning, living. And you're out here, on the wrong side of the gates, just another desperate man hoping for a chance. The London dock gates are less crowded than Victoria, but the scene is the same. A mob of men, a foreman on a platform, pointing, choosing, rejecting. You don't get picked. The West India dock, same story. 100 men fighting for 20 spots. The foreman's eyes passing over you like you're invisible. You don't get picked. By midday, you've tried 4 different docks. You've been shoved, elbowed, stepped on, and nearly trampled. Your throat is raw from shouting. Your arms are tired from waving, and you haven't earned a single penny. Ned finds you sitting on a pile of rope near the entrance to St. Catherine Dock, staring at nothing. Bad day? I didn't get picked, not once. Neither did I. He drops down beside you. Welcome to the docks, Daniel Webb. You sit in silence for a while, watching the traffic flow past. Carts and wagons and men with handcarts, sailors heading to and from their ships, women selling food from baskets, children running errands, everyone moving, everyone busy, everyone except you. What did you do? You ask finally. When you first started, when nobody would pick you. Ned is quiet for a moment. I starved mostly. Begged when I had to. Stole when I got desperate enough. He sees the look on your face. Don't judge me, country boy. You haven't been hungry enough yet. Give it a week. There has to be another way. There's always another way. Just depends on what you're willing to do. He stands up, dusts off his trousers. Come on, I want to show you something. You follow him through a maze of streets, away from the docks, into the heart of Shadwell. The buildings here are older, darker. The alleys twist and turn until you've lost all sense of direction. You're completely in Ned's hands now. If he wanted to rob you, to kill you, there'd be nothing you could do about it. But he doesn't. He leads you to a small courtyard behind a pub called the White Swan. A group of men are gathered there, maybe a dozen of them. They look up as you approach, eyes wary. It's all right, Ned says. He's with me. The men relax. One of them, a big man with a scarred face and hands like shovels, steps forward. Who's this then? New arrival. Name's Daniel. He's looking for work. The big man looks you up and down, studies your hands, your shoulders, your eyes. Farm boy. Yes, sir. Strong? Strong enough? The big man grunts. We'll see about that. He turns to Ned. The Sally Ann's coming in tonight. Dutch cargo. They need men to unload. Usual terms. Ned nods. We'll be there. And just like that, you've got work. Not official work. Not the kind you get picked for at the dock gates. This is something else. Something that happens in the shadows, away from the foreman and the contractors and the company men. Don't ask too many questions, Ned tells you as you leave the courtyard. Just show up where they tell you, do what they say, and keep your mouth shut. The pay's good, better than the official rate, but if you get caught... He doesn't finish the sentence. You don't need him to. You're going to work tonight. You're going to earn money. You're going to survive. And if the price is doing something that isn't strictly legal, well, you haven't been hungry enough yet. But you're getting there. The sun is setting over the London docks, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Somewhere, church bells are ringing. The end of another day, the beginning of another night. And somewhere out there, a ship called the Sally Ann is heading up the river, carrying cargo that needs unloading. Cargo that someone is willing to pay good money to move quickly and quietly, no questions asked. You should be scared. You probably are, somewhere deep down. But mostly what you feel is relief. You came to London looking for work, and tonight, one way or another, you're going to find it. Ned catches your eye and grins. Welcome to the docks, country boy. The real docks. Not the pretty version they put in the newspapers. You grin back. You can't help it. Thanks for showing me around. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you see what the work actually is. He claps you on the shoulder. Get some rest. Tonight's going to be a long one. You head back towards Slade's lodging house, walking through streets that are starting to feel almost familiar. The smell doesn't hit you quite as hard anymore. The noise doesn't seem quite as overwhelming. The crowds don't feel quite as suffocating. You're starting to belong here, starting to fit in, starting to become one of the thousands of men who live and work and struggle in the shadow of the great docks. One day down, a whole lifetime to go. But first, tonight. First, the Sally Ann. First, whatever comes next. You can't sleep. You lie on your mattress in Slade's lodging house, staring at the ceiling, listening to the snores and coughs of the men around you. Outside, the evening sounds of Shadwell drift through the grimy window. Voices, laughter, the distant clatter of a cart on cobblestones, a dog barking somewhere. In a few hours, you're going to do something illegal. You're not sure exactly what. Ned didn't say and you didn't ask. But you know it's not official. You know it's not the kind of work you get at the dock gates. You know that if you get caught, there will be consequences. And you're going to do it anyway. Because you didn't get picked today. Not at Victoria Dock. Not at London Dock. Not at West India or East India or St. Catherine. You stood in the cold for hours, screamed yourself hoarse, waved your arms until they ached, and nobody chose you. You've got maybe enough money left for 3 more days. 3 more days of bed and board at Slade's. After that, you're on the street, sleeping in doorways, begging for scraps, becoming one of those hollow-eyed men you saw shuffling through the alleys today. So yes, you're going to do something illegal tonight. You close your eyes and try to rest. The church bells wake you. 10 o'clock. Time to move. You pull on your boots as quietly as you can, grab your coat, creep down the stairs, avoiding the 3rd step from the bottom because you noticed this morning that it creaks. The front door is locked, but Slade showed you the trick to it. Lift and push. The bolt slides back with barely a whisper. And then you're out. Into the night. Into the fog. Because there is fog tonight. Thick grey fog rolling in off the river, swallowing the street lamps, turning everything soft and uncertain. You can barely see 10 feet in front of you. The world has shrunk to a small circle of damp cobblestones and swirling grey mist. This is the London you've heard about in stories. The London of Dickens and penny dreadfuls. Fog so thick you could lose yourself in it. Shadows that could hide anything. Anyone. You make your way toward the meeting point, a set of stairs leading down to the river near a pub called The Grapes in Limehouse. Ned gave you directions before you parted ways this afternoon. Left at the Chandlers, right at the Cooperage, straight on until you hit the water. The pub itself is ancient. You can just make out its shape through the fog as you pass, narrow and crooked, leaning toward the river like it's trying to get a better view. It's been serving sailors and dockers since 1583, nearly 300 years. They say Sir Walter Raleigh himself set sail from its narrow terrace when he left for the New World. You don't know if that's true, but standing here in the fog, looking at those crooked walls, you can believe almost anything. The streets are quieter now. Most of the respectable people have gone home, locked their doors, pulled their curtains against the night. The ones still out are the ones who do their business after dark. You pass a woman standing in a doorway, her face painted white with something that might be lead, her eyes following you as you walk. You pass 2 men huddled in conversation, their voices dropping to silence as you approach. You pass a drunk slumped against a wall, singing something sad and tuneless to himself. Keep walking. Don't look back. Don't make eye contact. Don't give anyone a reason to notice you. The fog gets thicker as you approach the river. You can smell it now, that brown, organic stink of the Thames, mud and sewage and decay, mixed with the salt tang of the sea. The fog seems to carry the smell, to wrap it around you like a wet blanket. You find the stairs, stone steps leading down into darkness, slick with moisture and something green and slippery that you don't want to think about. At the bottom, a narrow strip of muddy shore, the river lapping softly against it, and shapes in the fog. Men. Waiting. You're late. Ned's voice, coming from somewhere to your left. You turn toward it, and he emerges from the mist like a ghost. His face is serious now, no trace of the grin you saw earlier. I'm here. That's what matters. He gestures toward the other shapes in the fog. Come on, the boat's waiting. You follow him down to the water's edge, where a long, flat-bottomed boat is pulled up on the mud. A lighter, you think they call it, used for moving cargo from ships to shore. There are maybe a dozen men already aboard, sitting on the benches, their faces hidden in the darkness. You climb in, find a spot, sit down. Nobody speaks. The boat pushes off from the shore, 2 men at the oars, rowing with long, steady strokes. The fog closes in around you, and suddenly you can't see the shore anymore. Can't see anything except the men in the boat and the grey, swirling mist. You're on the Thames now, the great river that flows through the heart of London, carrying trade from every corner of the world. During the day, it's chaos. Ships and boats and barges, all fighting for space, all moving cargo, all making money. But at night, in the fog, it's something else entirely. Quiet, secret, dangerous. The water is black beneath you, absolutely black, like liquid coal. You can't see the bottom, can't even see the surface properly, just shapes and ripples in the darkness, the occasional gleam of reflected light from somewhere far away. The river stinks, even worse than during the day somehow. The fog traps the smell, holds it close. Human waste, dead things, the accumulated filth of 1 million people, all flowing downstream toward the sea. You breathe through your mouth and try not to think about it. The oars dip and pull, dip and pull. The boat glides through the water, heading downstream toward the open docks. First time? The voice comes from beside you. Not Ned, someone else. An older man with a weathered face and hands like gnarled roots. He's missing 2 fingers on his left hand, you notice. Old injury, probably from a cargo hook or a snapping rope. Yes. Thought so. You've got the look. He spits over the side of the boat. Don't worry, it's simple work. Just do what you're told and keep your mouth shut. What exactly are we doing? The old man laughs. It's not a pleasant sound. We're unloading a ship, son, same as any docker, just unofficial-like. Smuggling? That's an ugly word. I prefer to think of it as private enterprise. He laughs again. The companies charge fees to unload cargo. Customs takes its cut. Everyone's got their hand in the till. We just skip a few steps. Get the goods to where they need to go without all the fuss. You think about this, about what it means, about what happens if you get caught. The police? The river police, you mean? The old man shrugs. They're around. Got a station up at Wapping. Been there since 1798, if you can believe it. Oldest police force in the country, some say. He scratches his chin. But they can't be everywhere. Can't watch every ship. Can't patrol every stretch of river. And on a night like this? He gestures at the fog. They can't see any better than we can. You think about this. About the river police in their boats, trying to keep order on a river that's been home to smugglers and thieves for centuries. About the dock companies with their walls and guards and customs officers. About all the official procedures designed to stop exactly what you're about to do. And about how none of it matters. Not really. Because the river is too big, the fog is too thick, and there are too many men willing to take the risk for a few extra coins. The boat continues downstream. You can hear other sounds now. The creak of ships at anchor, the slap of waves against hulls. Somewhere, a bell is ringing. A ship's bell, marking the watch. Voices call out in the fog, words you can't quite make out. Could be other boats like yours. Could be the police. Could be nobody at all. Just the river playing tricks with sound. Nobody in your boat speaks. Nobody moves unnecessarily. Everyone just sits and waits and listens to the oars dipping and pulling through the black water. And then, looming out of the mist, a ship. The Sally Ann. You can just make out the name painted on her bow, illuminated by a single lantern hanging from the deck. She's a merchant vessel, maybe 100 feet long, riding low in the water, heavy with cargo. Your boat pulls alongside. Ropes are thrown down. Men scramble up a ladder to the deck. You follow, your hands slipping on the wet rungs, your heart pounding in your chest. The deck is chaos. Men everywhere, moving crates, lowering them over the side on ropes, passing packages hand to hand down into the waiting lighters below. Everyone working fast, working quiet, working by the light of a few carefully shielded lanterns. You, farm boy. The voice belongs to the big man from the courtyard, the one with the scarred face and the hands like shovels. He shoves a canvas sack into your arms. Take this down to the lighter. Come back for more. Don't drop it. Don't open it. Don't ask what's in it. The sack is heavy, 30, maybe 40 pounds. You can feel something shifting inside, something that clinks and rattles. You don't ask what it is. You carry it to the rail, hand it down to the men waiting below, climb back up for another one. The work is hard, harder than anything you've done before, even on the farms back in Kent. The sacks are heavy, and they keep coming, one after another, after another. Your arms are burning within the first hour. Your back is screaming. Sweat runs down your face despite the cold, soaking into your collar, stinging your eyes. The deck is slippery with dew and spilled something. You nearly fall twice. Catch yourself on the rail. Keep going. A man beside you isn't so lucky. He goes down hard, twists his ankle, has to be helped to the side. Nobody stops working. Nobody even pauses. The cargo keeps moving. Your hands are raw by midnight, blisters forming on your palms, breaking open, weeping fluid that mixes with the grime on the sacks. You wrap strips torn from your shirt around them, keep working. The pain becomes background noise, something you're aware of but no longer paying attention to. This is what survival feels like. This is what it costs. But you don't complain. You don't slow down. You just keep working. Because this is what you came to London for. This is what you need to survive. The hours blur together. Carry, lower, climb, repeat. The fog swirls around the ship. The lanterns flicker. Men grunt and curse under their breath. Somewhere, a church bell chimes midnight. Then 1, then 2. By 3 in the morning, the Sally Ann is empty. Or at least, the parts of her cargo that matter are empty. The official cargo, the stuff that will be unloaded tomorrow at the dock gates by official dockers with official paperwork, that's still in the hold. But the other stuff, the stuff that doesn't appear on any manifest, that's gone. Good work, farm boy. The big man is beside you, pressing coins into your hand. You don't count them, not here, not now. You just shove them in your pocket and nod. Same time tomorrow? The big man studies you for a moment. Then he nods. Same time tomorrow, if you want it. You want it. You climb back down into the lighter. The boat pushes off, heading back upstream, back toward Limehouse. Back toward the stairs that lead up to the streets you're starting to know. The fog is lifting now. You can see glimpses of the sky, grey with approaching dawn. The first hints of light are appearing in the east. Another day coming. Another morning at the dock gates. But first, you need sleep. Real sleep. The sleep of a man who's worked hard and earned his pay. Ned drops down beside you on the bench. He looks as tired as you feel. So, what do you think? You think about the heavy sacks, the secret cargo, the coins in your pocket, the risk. I think I'll be back tomorrow night. Ned grins. Knew you would be. You've got that look. What look? The hungry look. The look of a man who's willing to do what needs to be done. He leans back, closes his eyes. That's the look you need in this place, Daniel Webb. That's the look that keeps you alive. The boat glides through the water. The oars dip and pull. The city begins to wake around you, smoke rising from chimneys, lights appearing in windows, the great machinery of London grinding into motion for another day. Factory whistles beginning to sound in the distance, the first carts rattling over cobblestones somewhere out of sight. You reach into your pocket and feel the coins there. You don't count them yet, but you can tell by the weight that it's more than you would have earned in a day at the dock gates, more than you would have earned in 2 days maybe 3. 5 shillings. That's what they paid you, for one night's work. More than double what the official rate would have been, more than enough to cover your bed and board for the rest of the week, with money left over. And all you had to do was ask no questions. All you had to do was carry sacks in the dark and pretend you didn't notice that nobody was keeping records. Nobody was counting. Nobody was paying taxes or customs or fees. The boat reaches the shore. You climb out, your legs unsteady, your body aching in places you didn't know could ache. The mud sucks at your boots as you make your way to the stairs, each step an effort of will. At the top, you pause, look back. The lighter is already pushing off again, heading back out into the river, back toward whatever other business waits in the fog. This is your life now. The official docks by day, where you fight for a chance to be chosen. The shadow docks by night, where you do the work that nobody talks about. It's not what you imagined when you left Kent. It's not what your uncle described in his letters. But it's real. It's honest in its own crooked way. And it's keeping you alive. You make your way back to Slade's lodging house. The streets are still quiet, but you can see the first workers beginning to emerge from their doorways. Men heading to factories, women heading to markets. The endless cycle of labour that powers the greatest city in the world. You slip in through the front door. Lift and push, just like Slade showed you. Up the creaking stairs, into the common room where men are still sleeping, still snoring, still lost in whatever dreams poverty allows them. You pull off your boots, lie down on your mattress, close your eyes. You've got maybe 2 hours before Slade wakes everyone for the morning call. 2 hours to rest, 2 hours to recover, and then you'll be back at the dock gates, waving and shouting with everyone else, pretending you're just another desperate man looking for honest work. But you'll have coins in your pocket. You'll have food in your belly. You'll have the knowledge that no matter what happens at the gates, you've got another option waiting for you when the sun goes down. The shadow economy, the second docks, the work that happens in the fog, on the river, in the dark. It's not legal. It's not safe. It's not the life you planned. But it's a life. And right now, that's enough. You sleep, and somewhere out on the Thames, the Sally Ann rocks gently at her anchor, her holds mysteriously lighter than they were the night before. By the time the official dockers arrive to unload her this afternoon, nobody will suspect a thing. That's how it works in the Docklands. That's how it's always worked. The companies have their rules, their walls, their guards, their official procedures, and the men who live in the shadows have their own rules, their own procedures, their own ways of getting by. You're one of them now, for better or worse. One of the shadow men, one of the survivors. Weeks pass. You fall into a rhythm, a pattern, a way of living that would have seemed impossible back in Kent, but feels almost normal now. Mornings at the dock gates, standing on the stones with hundreds of other men, waving and shouting, hoping to be chosen. Most days you're not. The foremen have their favourites, their regulars, their men who slip them coins under the table. You're still new, still invisible, but it doesn't matter like it used to. Because nights, you work the river. The Sally Ann was just the beginning. There are other ships, other cargoes, other men who need strong backs and closed mouths. You've become one of the regulars now, one of the shadow men that the big scarred fellow calls on when there's work to be done. The money's good, better than good. You've paid off your debt to Slade. You've got new boots, proper ones that don't let in the rain. You've even started putting coins aside, hiding them in a loose brick behind your mattress. A nest egg, a safety net, something to fall back on if everything goes wrong. And everything could go wrong. You know that. Every night on the river is a risk. The river police are out there, patrolling in their boats, looking for men like you. One wrong move, one unlucky break, and you could end up in prison, or worse. But for now, you're surviving. More than surviving. You're starting to live. It's a Sunday afternoon in late May when Ned suggests the walk. You've been here, 6 weeks now? 7? He's sitting across from you in the common room at Slade's, picking at a bowl of cold stew. And you still don't know the neighbourhood? Not really. You go from here to the docks and back again. That's it. I know enough. You don't know anything. He pushes the bowl away. Come on, I'll show you around, give you the grand tour. You don't have anything better to do. The docks are closed on Sundays, even for casual men. No work tonight either. The moon is too bright, Ned says, too risky. So you've got a rare day off, and nothing to fill it with. Fine, show me your grand tour. Ned grins. You're going to love this. You walk east from Shadwell, into streets you've only glimpsed from a distance. The buildings here are older, more decrepit. Some of them look like they've been standing since the reign of the first Elizabeth. Timber frames black with age, walls that lean at angles that don't seem possible, windows so small and dirty that you can't see what's behind them. This is Ratcliffe, Ned says, or what's left of it. What happened to it? Time, fire, poverty. He shrugs. This used to be the heart of everything. Shipbuilders, merchants, sailors from every corner of the world. They launched vessels from here that sailed to Virginia, to India, to the ends of the earth. He kicks at a loose cobblestone. That was a long time ago. You walk down a street that seems too wide for the cramped buildings on either side. A main thoroughfare once. Now it's lined with pubs and lodging houses and shops that sell everything from rope to rum to things you'd rather not think about. They used to call this Ratcliffe Highway, Ned says. Most dangerous street in London, they said. Maybe the most dangerous street in the world. Sailors would come off their ships with months of pay in their pockets, and by morning they'd have nothing. Robbed, beaten, killed sometimes. He pauses in front of a pub with a faded sign. They changed the name a few years back. Thought it might help clean up the reputation. It didn't. The pub door opens, and a man stumbles out, drunk despite the early hour. He bumps into Ned, mutters something unintelligible, and weaves off down the street. Charming place, you say. It has its moments. You keep walking. The street curves and dips, following the line of the river somewhere to your right. You can smell it. You can always smell it. Ned stops at a corner and points down a narrow alley. See that building at the end? The one with the red door? You squint. What about it? That's an opium den, one of a few around here. The Chinese run most of them. Sailors come in, lie down on a mat, smoke a pipe, forget their troubles for a few hours. He shakes his head. I've seen men go in there and never come out. Not dead, just gone. Lost in the smoke. Spending every penny they earn on the next pipe. You've heard about opium. Everyone has. It's in half the medicines sold in chemist shops. But this is different. This is the pure stuff. Straight from China. Smoked in dark rooms by men who've given up on everything else. Have you ever? Once. Ned's voice is flat. Once was enough. I saw things. Felt things. And then I woke up 2 days later with no memory of where I'd been or what I'd done. He starts walking again. Stay away from it, Daniel. Whatever else you do in this place, stay away from the pipe. You walk on. Past more pubs. Past lodging houses with signs in languages you can't read. past groups of men standing on corners, watching you pass with eyes that measure and calculate. The people here are different from the ones in Shadwell. Darker skin, some of them. Different clothes. Different languages drifting from open windows. You hear something that might be Chinese. Something else that sounds like it could be from somewhere in Africa. A burst of Yiddish from a group of men with long beards and black hats. It's everyone here, isn't it, you say? Everyone from everywhere. That's the docks for you. Ned waves a hand at the crowded street. Ships come in from India, from China, from the West Indies, from America. The crews come ashore. Some of them stay. They find lodgings. They find women. They have children. And those children grow up speaking two languages, belonging to two worlds. He shrugs. It's messy. It's complicated. But it works. Mostly. You pass a cook shop where a dark-skinned man is frying something that smells like nothing you've ever encountered. Spices you can't name. Meat you can't identify. A queue of sailors waiting for their portion, coins ready in their hands. Lascar, Ned says, nodding toward the cook. Indian sailor. Thousands of them work the ships coming from the east. Some of them settle here when they're too old to sail. Open shops, start families. He pauses. They're good people mostly. Work hard, keep to themselves. You watch the cook flip something in his pan, flames leaping up. The smell is extraordinary, strange and foreign and somehow deeply appealing. Mostly? There's tension, always tension. The Irish came over during the famine, thousands of them, and the locals didn't like it. Said they were taking jobs, driving down wages. Same with the Jews coming from Russia. Same with the Chinese. He pauses. People are scared, Daniel. Scared of anything different. Scared of anyone who might take their place. You think about this. About the men at the dock gates fighting for work. About how quickly that fight could turn ugly if someone decided to blame the foreigners. Come on, Ned says. There's one more thing I want to show you. He leads you down toward the river, through a maze of alleys and courtyards, until you emerge onto a stretch of waterfront you haven't seen before. To your left, the great walls of the London docks. To your right, the river, grey and sluggish, dotted with boats. And in front of you, a pub. The Prospect of Whitby, Ned says. Oldest pub on the river, they say. Been here since before the docks were built, before the walls went up. Back when this was all just marshland and pirates and smugglers. The building is old, you can tell just by looking at it. Stone and timber, and windows that have been patched and repaired so many times they barely let in any light. A wooden balcony extends out over the water, supported by beams that look like they might collapse at any moment. They used to call it the Devil's Tavern, Ned continues, on account of the clientele, pirates, smugglers, thieves, the worst of the worst. He grins. Now it's just dockers and sailors, which might be the same thing, depending on who you ask. There's another pub downriver, he adds, the Gun at Cold Harbour. Even older than this one. They say Lord Nelson used to meet his mistress Emma Hamilton in a private room upstairs. But that's not the interesting part. He lowers his voice. The smugglers used to land goods at its waterside and pass them through hidden tunnels under the building. There's a spy hole still there, and a secret staircase, built in the days when customs officers had to be watched as closely as the tides. You shake your head. Tunnels, secret staircases. It sounds like something from a penny dreadful. These pubs, Ned says, they've seen everything. Press gangs used to lurk in the shadows here, you know, waiting for drunk men to stumble out. They'd grab them, drag them down to the ships, and next thing you know, some poor sod who came in for a pint is halfway to the Caribbean, serving His Majesty's Navy whether he likes it or not. He taps the table. There's an old story about an innkeeper's wife from around here. She said they came in the night, 6 of them, and took her Jack to serve the king. She never saw him again. You step inside. The smell hits you first. Beer and tobacco and decades of spilled spirits soaked into the wooden floor. The ceiling is low and blackened with smoke. The walls are covered with old prints and paintings, ships and sailors and scenes from a London that no longer exists. There's a pewter bar running the length of the room, worn smooth by generations of elbows. Behind it, barrels stacked 3 high. A fire burning in a grate despite the mild weather. Men hunched over tables, speaking in low voices, glancing up as you enter and then looking away. This place has seen things. You can feel it in the walls, in the floorboards that creak beneath your feet, in the way the light comes through those ancient windows, soft and golden, and sad. Ned orders 2 mugs of ale and leads you to a table by the window. Through the grimy glass, you can see the river. A ship is passing, its sails furled, being towed upstream by a steam tug. Beyond it, the forest of masts that marks the Pool of London. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands, all waiting their turn at the docks. Just down there, Ned says, pointing toward the water. That's where they used to hang the pirates. What? Execution dock, right there on the shore. They'd bring them down from Newgate prison, parade them through the streets, and string them up on the gallows. Leave the bodies hanging until the tide had washed over them 3 times. He takes a long drink of his ale. Captain Kidd was hanged there, back in 1701. They say the rope broke the first time, had to do it twice. You stare out the window, try to imagine it. The crowds, the gallows, the body swinging in the wind while the river rose and fell around it. That's not the worst of it, Ned says. After, they take the body and coat it in tar, put it in a metal cage and hang it up at Tilbury Point. Leave it there for years as a warning to other pirates. He shrugs. Different times. Different times. But not that different, really. The violence is still here. The desperation. The men who'll do anything to survive. The only difference is that now they hang you in private, behind prison walls, instead of putting on a show for the crowd. You drink your ale in silence, watching the river traffic pass. Why are you showing me all this? You ask finally. Ned looks at you. Really looks at you for the first time all day. Because you need to understand where you are, what this place is. He sets down his mug. The docks aren't just work, Daniel. They're not just ships and cargo and money. They're a world. A whole world, separate from everything else, with its own rules, its own history, its own ghosts. He leans forward. You can survive here. Plenty of men do. But you have to know what you're dealing with. You have to understand that everything you see has layers. That bloke selling fish from a cart? He might be running messages for a gang. That woman in the doorway? She might know more about what's happening in these streets than any police inspector. That old man begging on the corner? He might have sailed around the world twice before you were born. You think about this. About all the people you've passed without seeing. All the stories you've walked past without knowing. And what about you, you ask? What's your story? Ned laughs, but there's no humour in it. My story? My story is the same as everyone else's down here. Born in a cramped room above a shop. Father worked the docks until he couldn't anymore. Mother took in washing until her hands cracked and bled. I've been fighting for scraps since I could walk. He finishes his ale. There's nothing special about me, Daniel. Nothing special about any of us. We're just men trying to get by in a world that doesn't give a damn whether we live or die. The sun is starting to set. Through the window, the river has turned gold and orange, reflecting the last light of the day. Beautiful, almost, if you don't think too hard about what's floating in it. We should head back, Ned says. Slade doesn't like it when his lodgers miss supper. You stand up, take one last look around the pub, at the old prints on the walls, the low, blackened ceiling, the men drinking at the bar, their faces weathered by work and weather and time. This is your world now. These are your people, for better or worse. You follow Ned out into the evening, back through the maze of streets, back towards Shadwell and Slade's lodging house and the mattress that's starting to feel almost like home. The walk back is quieter. You're both lost in thought. The streets are emptying as night approaches, people heading home or heading to whatever business the darkness brings. You pass a group of children playing in the gutter, Irish by the sound of them, barefoot despite the chill. Their laughter echoes off the brick walls. You pass an old woman sitting in a doorway selling oranges from a basket. She calls out to you, her voice cracked and thin. You don't have any coins to spare, so you walk on. You pass a church, its spire rising up against the darkening sky. St. Anne's in Limehouse, Ned tells you. Been there for 150 years. Watching over all of this, witnessing all of it. And then you're back at Slade's. The blue door, the narrow hallway, the smell of boiled cabbage and unwashed bodies. Home. You eat your supper in silence. Bread and drippings and a thin soup that tastes like nothing at all. Around you, the other lodgers eat their own meals. Men you've never spoken to. Men whose names you don't know. All of you sharing this cramped space, this precarious existence, this life on the edge. After supper, you climb the stairs to the common room, find your mattress, lie down. Tomorrow you'll be back at the dock gates, waving and shouting with everyone else, fighting for a chance. And tomorrow night, if the moon is dark enough, you'll be back on the river, moving cargo that nobody talks about, earning money that nobody reports. This is your life now, both lives, the public one and the private one, the legal one and the shadow. Outside somewhere, a dog is barking, a woman is laughing, a man is singing a song you don't recognize, his voice carrying through the still evening air. The sounds of Shadwell, the sounds of a place that's starting to feel like it could be home. Tomorrow, the struggle begins again. But that's tomorrow's problem. Summer arrives, and with it, the smell. You thought you knew what the Thames smelled like. You were wrong. What you experienced in spring was nothing, a gentle hint, a polite suggestion of decay. This is something else entirely. The heat bakes the river, and the river responds by releasing everything it's been holding. Every dead thing, every chamber pot emptied from every window in the city, every slaughterhouse and tannery and factory upstream, all pouring their waste into the water. The smell rises like a living thing, thick and brown and absolutely inescapable. It gets into your clothes, into your food, into your dreams. You wake up in the night tasting it on your tongue. You can't escape it, not even indoors, not even with the windows closed and rags stuffed into the cracks. People are calling it the Great Stink. You heard a man at the dock gates saying that Parliament itself had been forced to hang sheets soaked in chloride of lime over the windows, that members were fleeing the chamber, handkerchiefs pressed to their faces, unable to conduct the business of the nation because the river had become unbearable. The newspapers are full of it. Letters demanding action, cartoons showing the Thames as a goddess of death, doctors warning of disease, of miasma, of plagues that could sweep through the city if something isn't done. But nothing is being done. Nothing ever is. Not quickly, anyway. The government argues while the city chokes. Down here in the Docklands, it's worse than anywhere. You're right on the water, right in the heart of it. The men at the dock gates have taken to chewing tobacco, claiming the juice helps cut the taste. Others tie rags soaked in vinegar across their faces. Most just bear it, because what else can you do? You don't have chloride of lime. You don't have handkerchiefs. You just have your sleeve pressed against your nose and the certain knowledge that eventually you'll get used to it. Everyone does. The human body adapts to almost anything, given enough time. It's a Tuesday morning in June when it finally happens. You're standing at the Victoria Dock gates, same as always. Same crowd of desperate men. Same foreman on his platform, looking down at you like you're cattle at market. Same ritual of waving and shouting and hoping. And then the foreman's cane points at you. At you. You there, the tall one with the brown coat. Step forward. For a moment, you don't move. Can't move. After weeks of being passed over, of being invisible, of watching other men chosen while you stood there with your arms raised and your voice raw, you've almost forgotten what it feels like to be seen. Move it, boy. I haven't got all day. You move. Push through the crowd. Step up to the platform where the foreman is making his selections. Name? Webb. Daniel Webb. The foreman writes something in his ledger. Doesn't look up. Sugar warehouse, 3 shillings 6pence. Report to the gangmaster at warehouse 12. And that's it. You're in. You walk through the dock gates for the first time in your life. Not as a shadow man in the dead of night, moving cargo that nobody talks about. As a legitimate worker. A casual labourer, yes, but a labourer all the same. With a ticket in your pocket and wages waiting at the end of the day. The docks are enormous. You knew that, of course. You've seen them from outside, seen the walls that stretch for what seems like miles, seen the masts of ships rising above the rooftops. But being inside is different. Being inside is overwhelming. Warehouses the size of cathedrals, their iron doors standing open to reveal mountains of cargo. Cranes swinging overhead, lifting pallets from ship to shore. Carts and wagons rumbling over cobblestones. Men everywhere, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, all moving with purpose, all part of this vast machine of commerce. The walls around you are 20 feet high at least. Solid brick, topped with iron spikes. Built to keep people out, yes, but also to keep cargo in. Before these walls went up, back at the start of the century, the theft was so bad that ships could lose half their cargo between the river and the warehouse. Night plunderers, they called them. River pirates. Men who'd row out in the darkness and strip a ship clean before morning. The walls put a stop to that. Mostly. The official theft, anyway. What happens on the river at night, in the fog, with men like you involved? That's a different matter entirely. But you don't think about that now. Right now, you're a legitimate worker. Right now, you belong. You find Warehouse 12, a brick building 5 stories tall, with barred windows and a smell that hits you before you even reach the door. Sweet, cloying, almost sickening in its intensity. Sugar. The gangmaster is a short, thick man with a face like a clenched fist. He looks at your ticket, grunts, and points toward a group of men gathered near a pile of barrels. You're with them. Hogsheads from the hold to the warehouse. Don't drop anything. Don't steal anything. Don't talk unless you're spoken to. You join the group. There are maybe 20 men, all casual labourers like yourself. You recognise a few faces from the gates, but nobody you know well enough to speak to. Everyone keeps their eyes down, their mouths shut. This is work, not friendship. The ship is a brig called the Providence, newly arrived from Jamaica. Her hold is packed with hogsheads of raw sugar, each one weighing somewhere north of 1,000 pounds. Your job is to help roll them off the ship, onto the dock, and into the warehouse for storage. It sounds simple. It's not. The hogsheads are massive wooden barrels, taller than you are, held together with iron hoops that cut into your hands if you grip them wrong. Rolling them requires coordination, strength, and a kind of instinct for how the weight will shift as it moves. Get it wrong, and you could lose a finger. Get it really wrong, and you could lose your life. Watch the edges, one of the older men tells you. They'll roll right over you if you let them. Seen it happen. Not pretty. You don't let it happen. You watch. You learn. You roll the hogsheads alongside the other men, feeling the weight of them, the way they want to tip and spin, the way you have to lean into them, use your whole body to keep them moving straight. By noon, you're soaked with sweat. Your arms are shaking. Your hands are bleeding from a dozen small cuts. But you're still standing, still working, still earning. The gangmaster calls a halt for dinner, half an hour to eat, to rest, to gulp down water from a shared bucket. You sit on a coil of rope and unwrap the bread and cheese you brought from Slade's. It's not ever eaten. Around you, the other men are doing the same, eating, drinking, talking in low voices about wages and weather and women. One of them, a man with a thick Irish accent, is complaining about the foremen who hire their own relatives instead of the best workers. Another is telling a story about a fight that broke out at the West India docks last week, 2 men arguing over a stolen meal. You listen. You don't contribute. You're still the new man here, still earning your place. After dinner, the work continues. More hogsheads, more rolling, more bleeding hands and aching muscles. The sugar smell gets into everything, into your clothes, into your hair, into your skin. You'll be tasting it for days. But you're earning 3 shillings 6pence for a day's work, honest work, legal work, the kind of work you came to London to find. The whistle blows at 6, end of the day. The gangmaster checks off names in his ledger, hands out tickets that can be exchanged for pay at the dock office. You take yours, tuck it carefully into your pocket. Walk out through the gates with the other men, back into the streets of the city. And then, because this is the Docklands, and this is what men do here, you follow them to the pub. The town of Ramsgate sits just upstream from the docks, a narrow building wedged between a warehouse and a rope maker's shop. The sign above the door shows a ship in full sail, and beneath it, painted in faded letters, the claim that this establishment has been serving refreshments since the time of Charles II. The pub got its name from the sailors who used to moor their ships at Wapping Old Stairs, just outside the door. Men from Ramsgate, a port town on the Kent coast, they'd come ashore, walk straight into the nearest pub, and drink until their money ran out or their ship left, whichever came first. There must be 3 dozen pubs within a quarter mile of where you're standing. Maybe more. Every corner, every alley, another drinking establishment. The George, the Ship and Whale, the Turk's Head, the King's Arms, all of them packed every night with men who've spent the day hauling and lifting and sweating. Inside, the town of Ramsgate is chaos. Dockers and sailors and lightermen, all crowding around the bar, all calling for ale and gin and porter. The noise is tremendous. Voices raised in argument and laughter, glasses clinking, someone playing a fiddle in the corner. The furniture is heavy, you notice. Oak tables bolted to the floor, benches built solid enough to withstand a brawl. They've had brawls here, plenty of them. You can see the marks on the walls, the gouges in the wood. You push your way to the bar and order a pint. 2pence. You've earned it. The first swallow tastes like heaven. Cold and bitter and exactly what you need after 10 hours of hauling sugar. You drink deep. Feel the tension starting to ease from your shoulders. Feel yourself becoming human again. First day? The voice comes from beside you. A man about your age, with sandy hair and a face full of freckles. He's smiling, but there's something careful in his eyes. Something that's measuring you. That obvious? You've got the look, like you can't quite believe you made it through. He extends a hand. Bill Garrett, I work the wine vaults at the London dock. You shake. Daniel Webb, sugar warehouse. Today anyway. Sugar's brutal work. But at least you can breathe in there. The wine vaults, they keep sealed up tight. No air, no light, just thousands of barrels, and the smell of wine so strong it makes your head spin. He grins. Some days, I come out drunk without drinking a drop. You talk, you drink. Bill tells you about the wine vaults, about the millions of gallons stored beneath the London docks in cellars that stretch for acres. He tells you about the coopers who maintain the barrels, the gaugers who measure the contents, the tasters who sample the wine to check for quality. It's a whole world down there, he says. Most people in London have no idea it even exists. They drink their claret and their port, never thinking about the men who hauled it off the ships, who stored it in the dark, who kept it safe until it was ready. He tells you about the other warehouses too, the tobacco vaults, where the smell is so strong that men develop a cough that never goes away. The wool warehouses, where the dust gets into your lungs and stays there. The ivory and spice warehouses, where fortunes are stacked in neat rows, waiting to be sold. Each dock has its speciality, Bill explains. West India does sugar and rum, East India does tea and spices, London Dock does wine and wool, St. Catherine does ivory and tortoiseshell, the luxury goods, and Victoria, the big one, does a bit of everything. Grain, tobacco, frozen meat from Australia, now that they've got ships with refrigeration. You listen, you learn. This is knowledge you need, understanding how the docks work, how the cargo flows, which warehouses pay best and which ones are death traps. The evening wears on. More men arrive, fresh from their shifts. The pub gets louder, smokier, more crowded. Someone starts singing a song you don't know, and others join in, their voices rough but happy. This is what it means to be a docker. Not just the work, but this. The fellowship, the shared exhaustion, the ritual of the pub after a long day, the way it turns strangers into something like family. You could get used to this. You really could. Somewhere around 9 o'clock you say your goodbyes. You've got an early morning tomorrow. Another day at the gates. Maybe you'll be picked again. Maybe you won't. That's the nature of casual work. That's what makes it so brutal. Even now, with money in your pocket and work in your muscles, there's no guarantee of tomorrow. You walk back through the darkening streets, past the walls of the docks, those great brick barriers that separate the chaos of commerce from the chaos of the streets, past the pubs still spilling light and noise onto the cobblestones, past the lodging houses with their dim windows and their rows of beds, past the cook shops closing up for the night, their owners scraping the last of the stew into buckets. The doorways are occupied now. Women in cheap dresses and cheaper paint, waiting for sailors with money to spend. They call out to you as you pass, sweet words and promises. You keep walking. You've seen what happens to men who stop, how quickly the money disappears, how easily a moment of weakness becomes a lifetime of regret. The smell of the river is still there, underneath everything, that thick, brown, rotting smell. But you barely notice it anymore. Your nose has surrendered. Your body has adapted. In a few weeks, you'll probably forget there was ever a time when London didn't smell like death. At Slade's you eat a quick supper, the usual, bread and drippings and something that might have been meat once, a long time ago. Around you, the other lodgers eat in silence. Everyone's tired. Everyone's saving their strength for tomorrow. You climb the stairs to your mattress. Tomorrow, you'll be back at the gates. Tomorrow, you'll fight for another day's work. But tonight, you've got 3 shillings and 6pence in your pocket, honestly earned. Tonight, you're a real docker, a man who worked inside the walls. Both lives are working now, the daylight one and the shadow one, the legal and the illegal. You're playing both sides, walking between worlds, surviving in the cracks. It won't last forever, nothing does. The night work is getting more dangerous. The river police are patrolling more often now, Ned says. Someone's been talking. Someone always talks. Eventually, your luck will run out. The question is whether you'll have saved enough by then to survive what comes next. But that's a problem for another day. Tonight, you rest. Outside, the city breathes. Ships creak at anchor. Cats fight in alleyways. Somewhere, a clock is chiming the hour. The great machinery of London, winding down for the night, preparing to crank back into motion when the sun rises. You dream of sugar, mountains of it, sweet and white and endless, rolling toward you like an avalanche, burying you alive. You wake up sweating, heart pounding, and for a moment you don't know where you are. Then, The snoring reaches you, the smell of bodies, the familiar lumps of the mattress beneath you. Slades, Shadwell, home. You turn over. Let the rhythm of breathing men carry you back down. Morning will come soon enough. It always does. The trouble starts on a Thursday night in August. You're on the river, same as always. A Dutch merchantman called the Zealand, anchored in the Pool of London, waiting for her official berth at St. Catherine Dock. Her captain has cargo he'd rather not declare to customs. Brandy mostly. French brandy in unmarked casks. Worth a small fortune if it can reach the right buyers without the taxman taking his cut. Your job is simple. Row out, load up, row back. Don't get caught. You've done it a dozen times now, maybe 24. The work has become routine, almost boring. You know the river, you know the tides, you know the sounds that mean danger, and the silences that mean safety. But tonight, something's wrong. You feel it before you see it. A tension in the air. The other men in the lighter are quiet, quieter than usual. Their eyes keep scanning the darkness. Their hands grip the oars a little too tight. What is it? You whisper to Ned, who's sitting beside you. Don't know. Something's off. The boat glides through the water. The fog is thin tonight, barely more than a haze. You can see the lights of the ships at anchor, the distant glow of the city on either bank. Too much visibility, too easy to be spotted. You reach the Zealand, start loading the casks, working fast, working quiet, same as always. The brandy is heavy, your arms are aching, sweat runs down your back despite the cool night air. And then, you hear it. Oars. Somewhere behind you, moving fast. River police, someone hisses. Go, go now. Everything happens at once. Men scrambling down the ship's ladder, casks being shoved over the side, abandoned to the river. The lighter pushing off, oars digging deep, heading for the shadows of the southern bank. You're in the water before you realise what you're doing. Not the lighter. The lighter is too slow, too visible. You're swimming. Cold water closing over your head, black as ink, tasting of mud and worse things. The river fills your mouth, your nose. You gag, spit, keep moving. You surface, gasp for air, and start stroking toward the shore. The water is cold. Colder than you expected. Even in August, even after weeks of heat, the Thames holds its chill deep down. Your muscles are already cramping. Your boots are dragging you down. You should have kicked them off, but there wasn't time. There's never time. Behind you, shouts. A lantern swinging across the water, its light cutting through the thin fog. The crack of something that might be a pistol, or might just be wood breaking. Men's voices, rough with authority. There, in the water, stop or we'll fire. You don't stop, you don't look back, you just swim. Your arms are burning, your legs are going numb. The shore seems impossibly far away. You can barely see it in the darkness, just a black line against a blacker sky. You aim for it, stroke after stroke, mouth full of river water, lungs screaming for air. Something brushes past your leg, something soft and yielding. You don't want to know what it is. Dead animal, dead person. This river holds all of London's dead sooner or later. The shore comes up faster than you expect. Not the nice stone steps of a proper landing. Mud. Thick, sucking mud that grabs at your boots and tries to pull you under. You crawl through it, hands and knees, fingers sinking into cold slime, pulling yourself forward inch by inch. A set of rotting wooden posts, the skeleton of an old jetty. You use them to haul yourself up. Beyond them, a gap between two warehouses, a shadow within shadows, a place to hide. You hide. For what feels like hours, you crouch in the darkness, shivering in your wet clothes, listening. The sounds of the pursuit fade slowly, voices calling across the water, lanterns moving on the river. Then, gradually, silence. You wait, and wait, and wait. When you finally emerge, the sky is starting to lighten in the east. Dawn coming. Another day. You made it, but not everyone did. You find out later, at Slade's, from men who heard from men who saw, 2 of the shadow workers were caught, hauled out of the water by the river police. They're in the cells at Wapping now, waiting for the magistrate. The charges will be serious. Theft from a vessel, smuggling, conspiracy to defraud the customs service, transportation probably. 7 years in Australia if they're lucky, 14 if they're not. One of them is a man you worked beside just last week. A man with a wife and 3 children living in a room in Shadwell. A man who was just trying to feed his family. Gone now. Gone for good. You were lucky, Ned says. He didn't make it onto the lighter either. Swam for the opposite shore, hid under a dock until the police gave up. His clothes are still damp, and there's a cut on his forehead that he won't explain. We were all lucky. But luck runs out, Daniel. It always runs out. You know he's right. You've known it for weeks now. Every night on the river is a roll of the dice. Sooner or later, the dice come up wrong. I'm done, you say. No more night work. Ned looks at you for a long moment. Then he nods. Probably smart. Get out while you can still walk away. He pauses. I should do the same, but I won't. Can't. The money's too good and the gates are too cruel. You understand? You understand. You understand perfectly. The shadow economy isn't just about greed, it's about survival. When the official system offers you nothing but humiliation and starvation, you find other ways to live. But you've got money saved now. Enough to last a few months if you're careful. Enough to give you time to find another way. The night work is over for you. At least for now. The days that follow are harder than you expected. Without the shadow money coming in, you're back to depending entirely on the dock gates. Standing on the stones every morning, waving and shouting, hoping to be chosen. Some days you are, most days you're not. The work, when you get it, is brutal. Sugar, tobacco, wool, grain. You learn them all. You learn which gangmasters are fair and which ones will cheat you out of your wages. You learn which warehouses are safe and which ones will kill you if you're not careful. The tobacco vault at the London dock is the worst. Underground, beneath street level, stretching for what seems like miles. The air is so thick with dust that you can barely breathe. Men cough up brown phlegm for days after a shift there. Some of them never stop coughing. They call it the docker's lung. It kills you slowly, over years, filling your chest with something that feels like wet sand. You work there once and swear never to go back. The money isn't worth it. Nothing is worth it. The wool warehouse isn't much better. The bales are heavy, awkward, covered in grease and lanolin that seeps into your skin and won't wash out. You smell like sheep for a week after each shift. The older workers all have a particular hunch to their shoulders, a permanent bend from years of hauling fleeces. Their hands are stained yellow from the grease. Their skin is cracked and peeling. The grain warehouse is a different kind of hell. Rats. Everywhere. Fat, sleek rats that don't even bother to run when you approach. They've learned that men are too tired to chase them, too busy to care. You work alongside them, shoveling wheat into sacks while they watch from the shadows, waiting for you to leave so they can take their share. The spice warehouse at the East India Dock is almost pleasant by comparison. The smell of pepper and cinnamon and something sweet you can't identify. The problem there is the dust. Spice dust that gets in your eyes, your nose, your throat. Men sneeze for hours after a shift. Some of them sneeze blood. And everywhere, always, the danger. Cranes that swing without warning. Cargo hooks that can take off a hand if you're not paying attention. Pallets that collapse. Barrels that roll. Ropes that snap. Men crushed, maimed, killed. All in the normal course of a day's work. You see a man die in early October. A lighter man, working the cranes at West India Dock. The chain breaks, the pallet falls. He doesn't even have time to scream. One moment he's standing there, guiding the load. The next moment he's gone, buried under a ton of sugar crates. They dig him out. What's left of him? Carry the body away on a handcart. By the time the dinner whistle blows, a new man is working his position. By the next morning, nobody mentions his name. There's no compensation when it happens, no pension, no support for the widow and children left behind. A man dies on the docks, and the foreman writes something in his ledger, and life goes on. The cargo keeps moving, the money keeps flowing. One dead worker means nothing to the men who own the ships and the warehouses and the docks themselves. That's the system. That's how it's always been. September comes, and with it, a change. The great stink finally breaks. The weather cools. The river stops boiling and starts to smell almost bearable again. Parliament, shamed into action by months of holding handkerchiefs to their noses, has voted funds for a massive new sewer system. It'll take years to build, but at least someone's finally doing something. You've survived the summer, somehow. You're leaner now than when you arrived. Harder. Your hands are calloused, your muscles tight, your face weathered by sun and wind and work. You don't recognise yourself sometimes, catching your reflection in shop windows. The farm boy from Kent is gone. In his place stands a docker, a Londoner, a man shaped by the river and the streets. The nights are getting longer, the mornings darker. You stand at the dock gates in the grey pre-dawn light, your breath misting in the cool air, surrounded by men just like you. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, all waiting, all hoping, all desperate. This is your life now. This is what you've become. One morning in late September, something different happens at the Victoria Dock gates. The crowd is larger than usual. Men have been pouring into the Docklands all summer, drawn by rumours of work, of wages, of opportunity. Irish families fleeing the lingering effects of the famine, Scots driven south by failing industries, farm labourers like yourself, pushed off the land by machines and enclosures. More men than there are jobs, more hands than there is cargo to move. The foreman appears on his platform, same as always. He looks out over the sea of upturned faces with the expression of a man surveying cattle at market, judging, calculating, deciding who lives and who starves. But before he can start calling names, a voice rises from the crowd. It's not fair. Everyone turns. A man near the front, middle-aged, with a face like a clenched fist. He's shaking, trembling with something that might be rage, or might be desperation, or might be both. His clothes are worn thin, patched and patched again. His cheeks are hollow, his eyes are wild. 3 weeks I've been coming here. 3 weeks, and nothing, not a single day's work. While some men get chosen every morning, the same faces, the same names. How much are you paying them? How much do they slip you under the table? A ripple goes through the crowd. Murmurs of agreement, nervous shifting. Everyone knows it's true. Everyone knows the system is rigged. But nobody says it out loud. Nobody challenges the foreman. That's a good way to never work again. The foreman's face doesn't change. He's heard this before. They all have. It's always the same complaint. The system favours the connected. The foremen have their favourites. The men who pay bribes get called first. Everyone knows it. Nobody does anything about it. If you don't like it, the foreman says, his voice flat and cold, you can leave. There's 100 men behind you who'd be happy to take your place. Leave? Leave and go where? The man's voice cracks. There's nothing else. This is all there is. My children haven't eaten in 2 days. My wife is sick. And you stand up there on your platform, warm and fed, deciding who gets to live and who gets to die. He's crying now. Actual tears running down his weathered face. Not tears of sadness. Tears of rage. Tears of helplessness. The tears of a man who has finally broken. Around him, the crowd shifts. Some men look away, embarrassed by the display. Others nod in agreement, their own faces twisted with barely suppressed fury. A few look angry, like they're ready to join in, to storm the platform, to tear down the whole rotten system. For a moment, anything seems possible. Violence, revolution, a reckoning. Then, the moment passes. Constables, the foreman shouts. 2 men in uniform appear from somewhere behind the platform. They've been waiting. Of course they have. This happens more often than you realised. The system has its enforcers, its ways of maintaining order. Back in line, the foreman says, or I'll have you removed, and you'll never work these gates again. For a moment, the man doesn't move. He stands there, fists clenched, tears streaming, rage and helplessness fighting for control of his face. You can see him deciding, fight or surrender, dignity or survival, a moment of defiance or a lifetime of consequences. Survival wins. It always does, in the end. That's what they count on. That's why the system works. Because hungry men can't afford principles. Because desperate men can't afford pride. The man steps back, rejoins the crowd, wipes his face with his sleeve. The constables watch him for a moment, then fade back into the shadows. The selection continues as if nothing happened. Names are called. Men step forward. The chosen ones file through the gates into the docks. The rest disperse, to try again at another gate, to wander the streets, to drink their sorrows away in one of the endless pubs. You're one of the lucky ones today. Sugar warehouse again. The foreman recognises you now, or seems to. You've become a familiar face. Someone who shows up, works hard, doesn't cause trouble. That's worth something. Not much, but something. As you walk through the gates, you glance back at the crying man. He's still standing there, alone now. The crowd flowing around him like water around a stone. He's staring at the closed gates with an expression you can't read. You think about him all day, while you roll hogsheads, while you eat your bread and cheese at the dinner break, while you walk home through streets that are starting to feel almost familiar. That could be you. That's the thing you can't shake. One bad month, one injury, one run of terrible luck at the gates, and you'd be standing there, crying in front of everyone, broken by a system that doesn't care whether you live or die. You're surviving. For now. But survival isn't the same as living. It's not the same as thriving. It's just holding on, day after day, hoping that tomorrow will be better, while knowing it probably won't. That night, lying on your mattress at Slade's, you make a decision. You need more than this. More than the gates and the casual work and the endless uncertainty. You need a plan, a way out, something to aim for beyond just getting through another day. You don't know what it is yet. You don't know how to find it, but you know you have to try. Because if you don't, you'll end up like that man at the gates, broken, crying, alone, and you refuse to let that happen. The sounds of the lodging house wash over you, snoring, coughing, someone muttering in their sleep, the creak of the building settling into itself. the distant noise of the streets outside. Tomorrow you'll go back to the gates. Tomorrow you'll fight for another day's work. That part won't change, but something inside you has changed. Something has hardened. Something has decided. You're going to find a way out of this, whatever it takes. For once, your dreams are empty. Just darkness. Just rest. That's enough for now. Winter comes early that year. By late October, the mornings are dark and bitter. Frost glitters on the cobblestones. Your breath hangs in clouds as you walk to the dock gates. The men around you are wrapped in whatever they can find. Coats with holes, scarves made from rags, newspaper stuffed inside boots to keep out the cold. You're better off than most. You've got a proper coat now, bought second-hand from a tailor in Whitechapel. It's wool, heavy, with only a few patches. It keeps the wind out. That's more than a lot of men can say. The cold changes everything. Work slows down as the weather turns. Ships stay in port longer, waiting for storms to pass. Ice forms on the river some mornings, thin sheets that crackle and groan as the boats push through. The dock companies cut their casual workforce. Fewer ships means fewer men needed to unload them. The competition at the gates gets fierce. Men who are comfortable in summer are desperate now. The crowd presses tighter against the platform. The shouting gets louder. The foremen get crueler, enjoying their power over men who would do anything for a day's wages. You see fights break out. Real fights, not the scuffles you witnessed before. Men throwing punches over perceived slights, over stolen places in line, over nothing at all. The constables break them up, drag the fighters away. Neither man will work that day. Neither man seems to care. Hunger does strange things to people. You're learning that. One morning in November, you're standing at the London dock gates when you see a familiar face on the platform. Not the usual foreman, someone else, someone you recognise. Bill Garrett, the man you met in the pub back in summer, the one who works the wine vaults. He's standing next to the foreman, speaking into his ear, pointing at the crowd. The foreman nods. Bill's eyes scan the sea of upturned faces, searching for something, for someone. They land on you. Bill nods. The foreman's cane swings out, points directly at your chest. You, Webb, step forward. You push through the crowd, step up to the platform. Bill is grinning at you. Wine vaults today, he says. I told them you're reliable. Don't make me a liar. The wine vaults are underground. You'd heard about them from Bill, but hearing and seeing are different things. Stone stairs lead down into darkness. The air gets cooler as you descend, then cooler still. The walls are damp to the touch, beaded with moisture that seeps through the ancient brickwork. By the time you reach the bottom, your breath is misting again, even though you're deep beneath the streets of London. And then, the vaults open up before you. Endless. That's the word that comes to mind. Endless stone corridors stretching away into blackness, lit by oil lamps that cast flickering shadows on the curved ceilings. The architecture is older than anything you've seen in the docks above. Brick arches, carefully constructed, designed to bear the weight of the city pressing down from above. And along every wall, stacked 3 and 4 high, barrels. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. Port from Portugal, sherry from Spain, claret from France, brandy and Madeira and wines you've never heard of, from places you couldn't find on a map. More wine than you could drink in 100 lifetimes. This way, Bill says, and watch your step, it's slippery down here. He's not wrong. The floor is damp with something. Condensation, maybe, or spillage from the barrels. Wine that's seeped through cracks over the years, staining the stone a deep purple in places. The smell is overwhelming. Not unpleasant exactly, but intense. Wine and oak and something musty, like old churches, like history itself, aging in the darkness. The vaults run for acres, Bill explains as you walk. Nobody knows exactly how far. Some of the older tunnels, they were dug back when the docks first opened, 1805. They've been expanding ever since. There are sections down here that haven't been opened in 50 years. Barrels that were laid down before either of us was born. Just sitting in the dark, getting better. You pass men working in the dim light. Coopers checking barrels for leaks, their tools clinking softly in the underground silence. Gaugers measuring contents with long brass rods, making notes in ledgers by lamplight. Your job today is simple. A shipment of port from Portugal needs to be moved from the receiving area to long-term storage. Roll the barrels through the tunnels, stack them in their designated spots, come back for more. The barrels are heavy. Not as heavy as sugar hogsheads, but awkward in the narrow passages. You have to feel your way sometimes, moving by touch when the lamplight fails to reach. You get used to it, Bill says. After a while, you don't even notice the dark. You work through the morning, through the afternoon. The hours blend together in the underground gloom. There's no sundown here. No way to judge the passage of time except by the rumbling of your stomach and the aching of your muscles. But it's work. Steady work. And when the day ends, and Bill leads you back up those stone stairs into the cold evening air, you realise something. You didn't have to fight for this. You didn't have to scream and wave and hope. Someone spoke for you. Someone vouched for you. That's worth more than you can say. Thank you, you tell Bill as you walk toward the dock gates, for putting in the word. He shrugs. You seemed like a decent sort, and I needed someone who wouldn't steal. Half the casuals they send down there, they try to tap the barrels, stick a straw through a hole and drink until they can't stand up. He chuckles softly. The bosses don't like that. I'm not a thief. I know. That's why I asked for you. You walk in silence for a moment. The streets are crowded with workers heading home, heading to pubs, heading to whatever warmth and comfort they can find. Listen, Bill says, I might be able to get you more work down there. Regular-like. Not permanent, not yet, but close. The gangmasters know me. I can put in a word. You stop walking, look at him. Why would you do that? Bill considers the question. His breath fogs in the cold air. Because I remember what it was like, he says finally, standing at those gates every morning, not knowing if I'd eat that day or not, watching the foremen play their games. He shrugs again. Someone helped me once, a long time ago. Figured I'd pass it on. You don't know what to say. In all your months in London, nobody has offered you anything without expecting something in return. This feels different. This feels like something you'd almost forgotten existed. Kindness. I won't let you down, you say. I know you won't. The weeks that follow are better. Not easy, never easy, but better. Bill is true to his word. He speaks to the gangmasters, the ones who run the wine vault crews. He tells them you're reliable, that you show up on time, that you work hard and don't steal and don't cause trouble. It's enough. Slowly you start getting called more often. Not every day, but most days. The foremen at the London dock gates start to recognise your face, start to nod when they see you in the crowd, start to point that cane in your direction without Bill having to whisper in their ears. You're becoming known. You're becoming trusted. In the brutal world of casual dock labour, that's everything. The money is steadier now. You're not rich, you'll never be rich. But you can pay your bed and board at Slade's without worrying. You can eat 2 meals a day instead of 1. You can set aside a few coins each week, adding to the nest egg hidden behind the loose brick. Winter deepens. December brings snow, then freezing rain, then a cold snap that leaves the river sluggish with ice. The ships struggle to navigate. Some of them don't try at all, anchoring in the pool of London to wait out the weather. The cargo piles up in the warehouses, waiting for spring. The cold kills people. You hear about them at the lodging house, at the pubs. Men found frozen in doorways, women dead in unheated rooms, children who went to sleep and didn't wake up. The newspapers report the numbers like cricket scores. 30 dead this week, 40 the next. Nobody seems to do anything about it. You stay warm, barely. The wine vaults are actually a blessing in winter. It's cold down there, yes, but it's a steady cold. Not the biting wind that cuts through your coat on the streets above. Not the damp chill that seeps into your bones when you're standing at the dock gates at 4 in the morning. You work as much as you can, save as much as you can. The nest egg behind the loose brick grows slowly. Coins adding up, one by one, building towards something you can't quite name yet. Christmas passes. You spend it in the common room at Slade's, sharing a bottle of cheap gin with Ned and a few other lodgers. Someone produces a penny whistle and plays carols, badly. Someone else tells jokes that are more sad than funny. A man in the corner cries quietly into his beer, thinking of family he'll never see again. It's not much of a celebration, but it's something. It's warmth and companionship on the darkest night of the year. It's proof that even here, even in this hard place, people still reach out to each other. You think about home, about Kent, about the farm you left behind, the uncle who raised you, the quiet life that seems like it belonged to a different person entirely. You could write to them. You've thought about it. But what would you say? That you're alive? That you're working? That you've become a different man than the one who left? That you've done things you're not proud of, seen things you can't forget, learned lessons that no letter could explain? Maybe someday. Not yet. The new year arrives, 1863. You mark it by working a double shift in the wine vaults, hauling sherry from one end of the tunnels to the other. It's cold down there, colder than usual, and your fingers go numb despite the gloves Bill lent you. But you're working. That's what matters. You're working, and you're surviving, and slowly, inch by inch, you're building something that might last. Spring comes late that year. By the time the weather finally breaks in April, you've been in London for a full year, 12 months. It feels like a lifetime. You're different now, harder, quieter. The eager young man who stepped off that barge at Wapping has been worn down, reshaped, forged into something tougher. You don't smile as much as you used to. You don't trust as easily. You've learned that the world takes more than it gives, and that the only person you can really count on is yourself. But you've also learned other things. You've learned that some people are good, that kindness exists even in the darkest places, that a man like Bill Garrett, who has nothing to gain and nothing to prove, will still reach out a hand to help a stranger. You've learned that community matters, that the men who work the docks, for all their roughness and their fighting and their drinking, look out for each other. That when a man falls sick, his mates will take up a collection. That when a man dies, his widow won't be left entirely alone. You've learned that the system is cruel, but the people inside it are not. Or not always. Or not entirely. These are hard lessons, but they're worth knowing. One evening in early May, Bill finds you at the town of Ramsgate. The pub is crowded, same as always. Men drinking away their wages, their sorrows, their fears. The smell of beer and tobacco and bodies packed too close together. "I've got news," Bill says. He's grinning, actually grinning, which is unusual for him. "Good news." "What?" "The gangmaster for the wine vaults, old Morrison. He's retiring, going to live with his daughter in Surrey. They're looking for someone to take over his crew." Bill leans closer. "I put your name forward." You stare at him, don't quite understand what he's saying. "Gangmaster? Me?" "Not right away. You'd start as a deputy, learn the ropes. But Morrison liked you, said you've got a good head on your shoulders, said you're honest, which matters more than anything in the vaults." Bill claps you on the shoulder. "It's a chance, Daniel, a real chance. Permanent position, regular wages. No more standing at the gates. No more standing at the gates." The words hit you like a physical blow. You've spent so many mornings there, so many hours, waving and shouting and hoping. The humiliation of it, the desperation, the way it grinds you down day after day until you can barely remember what it felt like to have dignity. And now, maybe, a way out. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. That's all Morrison wants for now. Come down to the vaults tomorrow, talk to him. See if it's something you want. You nod, slowly. Your head is spinning. That night you can't sleep. You lie on your mattress at Slade's, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of men sleeping around you, thinking about what Bill said, about what it might mean. A permanent position, regular wages, a place in the hierarchy of the docks, not at the bottom anymore, not one of the desperate casuals fighting for scraps. Something more, something stable, something like a future. It's more than you dared to hope for when you arrived in London, more than you thought possible after those first terrible weeks at the gates, more than you imagined even in your most optimistic moments. And it scares you. Because having something means having something to lose. And you've learned, in your year on the docks, that loss is always waiting. Around every corner, in every shadow, ready to take back everything you've built. But you can't live in fear forever. You can't let the possibility of failure keep you from trying. Tomorrow, you'll go to the wine vaults. You'll talk to Morrison. You'll see what kind of future might be waiting for you in those endless underground corridors. And whatever happens, you'll face it. The same way you've faced everything else since you came to this city. One day at a time, one step at a time, moving forward, even when you can't see where you're going. That's all any of us can do. Outside, the city murmurs in its sleep. Ships rock at anchor. The river flows on, carrying its endless cargo of commerce and waste and history. The docks are changing. You can feel it, even if you can't see it yet. New technologies, new ships, new ways of moving goods from one place to another. The world is getting faster, and the docks will have to keep up or be left behind. But that's a problem for another time. Tonight you let the exhaustion take you. Tomorrow you begin again. You take the position. Of course you do. Only a fool would turn down a chance like this. Regular wages, steady work, a place in the hierarchy of the docks that doesn't depend on the whims of foremen or the luck of the morning call. Old Morrison is a patient teacher. He shows you the routines of the wine vaults, the paperwork that tracks every barrel from ship to storage to sale, the schedules that keep the crews moving through those endless underground corridors, the delicate politics of managing a crew of men who've been doing this work longer than you've been alive. The key, Morrison tells you, is fairness. These men will follow you if they think you're fair. They'll make your life hell if they think you're not, and they'll know the difference. They always know. You learn, you watch, you make mistakes, and Morrison corrects them gently, without making you feel small. A mislabeled shipment here, a scheduling conflict there, the wrong crew assigned to the wrong section of the vaults, small errors that could become big problems if left unchecked. By midsummer, you're running shifts on your own. You know the vaults now, know them the way a man knows his own home. Every turning, every staircase, every section where the lamps burn low and you have to feel your way through the dark. The men are starting to trust you, starting to see you as one of their own, not just another boss sent down from above. By autumn, Morrison is spending most of his time in the office, leaving the day-to-day operations to you. He's tired, you can see it. 50 years underground has worn him down. His eyes have trouble with bright light now. His lungs wheeze from decades of breathing damp air. He's earned his rest. And then, one grey morning in November, he's gone. Retired to Surrey, just like he planned. A letter arrives a few weeks later. He's settling in well. His daughter's children keep him busy. He hopes you're treating the vaults with the respect they deserve. You write back. Tell him you are. Tell him you won't forget what he taught you. A new gangmaster is needed. You get the job. It's not a celebration. There's no ceremony, no announcement, no fanfare. Just a meeting with the dock superintendent, a signature on some papers, and a handshake that feels like it should mean more than it does. But it changes everything. You're not a casual labourer anymore. You're not one of the desperate men at the gates, waving and shouting for a chance to work. You're permanent staff. You have a position, a title, a future. The wages are modest but reliable. Enough to move out of Slade's lodging house after all those years. You find a room of your own in Wapping, small but clean, with a window that looks out over the river. Your own space, your own door to lock at night, your own life, finally, after so long. You're 25 years old. You've been in London for nearly 3 years. It feels like you've lived several lifetimes. The years that follow blend together in your memory. Work, sleep, the occasional pint at the town of Ramsgate or the prospect of Whitby. Sundays spent walking along the river, watching the ships come and go, thinking about how far you've come. You see Ned less often now. He's still working the shadow economy, still taking risks on the river at night. You worry about him. You've seen what happens to men who push their luck too long. Transportation, prison, death in the cold waters of the Thames. But Ned won't listen. Ned never listens. He's got a wife now, and children, and mouths to feed. The night work pays better than anything else he can find, so he keeps at it, year after year, rolling the dice every time he climbs into a lighter. You hear about his arrest in the winter of '68. The river police finally caught up with him. A ship called the Marlborough, Dutch again, loaded with tobacco that never made it to the customs house. Ned got 5 years, transportation to Australia. His wife and children went to the workhouse. You tried to help them, sent money when you could, but it wasn't enough. It's never enough. You can't save everyone. That's another lesson the docks have taught you. Time passes. The 60s give way to the 70s, the 70s to the 80s. You watch the docks grow and change around you. New technologies arrive. Steam cranes that can lift loads no man could manage, swinging cargo from ship to shore in minutes instead of hours. Hydraulic machinery that speeds up the unloading process. Railways that carry goods straight from the dockside to factories across the country, belching smoke and noise as they go. The ships are changing too. The old sailing vessels, the ones you saw when you first arrived, are disappearing. In their place, steamships. Iron hulls instead of wooden, engines instead of sails. They're faster, more reliable, able to keep schedules that wind-powered ships never could. The work gets faster, more efficient, more demanding. The dock companies merge and consolidate, swallowing each other up in an endless game of commerce. The competition between rival docks gives way to something more coordinated, more organised, more ruthless in its own way. Victoria Dock expands. Royal Albert Dock opens in 1880, connected to Victoria by a channel that lets the biggest ships sail straight through. The scale of it all is staggering. Warehouses that stretch for miles, water basins that could hold entire fleets. The Port of London, they're calling it now, the gateway to the empire. You adapt. You learn the new systems. You train younger men in the ways of the wine vaults, passing on what Morrison taught you, what you've learned yourself over the years. The hierarchy rises above you, and you rise with it. Deputy superintendent, then superintendent. A corner office with a view of the warehouses you once hauled cargo through with your bare hands. You marry. A woman named Sarah, who works as a seamstress in Limehouse. She's practical and kind, and doesn't ask too many questions about your early years in London. You buy a small house in Shadwell, not far from where Slade's lodging house still stands. You have children, 2 boys and a girl. You watch them grow up in streets that are changing almost as fast as you are. The docks of your youth are disappearing. The old wooden wharves are replaced by concrete and steel. The sailing ships give way to steamers, faster and more reliable, carrying more cargo than the old vessels ever could. The world is shrinking, and London is at its centre. You're 50 years old when the new century arrives. 1900. The newspapers are full of predictions. The age of progress. The triumph of the British Empire. A future so bright it blinds anyone who looks too closely. You're not so sure. You've seen too much to believe in simple progress. You've seen the bodies pulled from the river, the widows begging in the streets, the children working in conditions that would make a decent man weep. Progress, yes, but progress for whom? Still, you can't deny that things are changing. The docks are busier than ever. More ships, more cargo, more men working the gates, hoping for a chance. The system is still brutal, still unfair, but there's more of everything now. More money flowing through, more opportunity, at least for some. Your boys are grown now. The eldest works in the offices of a shipping company. The younger one went to sea, sailing on merchant vessels to places you've only read about. Your daughter married a clerk and moved to Greenwich. You see her on Sundays when the weather is good and the river crossing isn't too rough. Sarah passes in the winter of 1907. Pneumonia. It takes her quickly, which is a mercy of sorts. You hold her hand at the end, in the bedroom of the house you bought together, while the snow falls softly outside the window. You don't know what to do with yourself after that. The house feels too big, too quiet, too full of memories. You throw yourself into work. It's all you know how to do. And then, in 1909, everything changes again. The Port of London Authority, that's what they call it. A new organisation created by Parliament to take over all the docks, every company, every facility, every warehouse and crane and stretch of waterfront, all of it, unified under a single administration. The old rivalries are over. The competition that defined the docks for a century is being swept away. In its place, something new, something bigger, something that promises efficiency and order and a future that doesn't depend on the chaos of competing interests. You're sceptical at first. You've seen too many promises broken, too many reforms that changed nothing. But this one feels different. This one has the weight of government behind it, the resources, the will to actually make things work. The transition takes years, paperwork and meetings and reorganisations that seem endless. But slowly, the Port of London Authority takes shape. New policies, new procedures, new ways of doing things that would have seemed impossible when you first arrived in London, back when Slade's lodging house was your home and the dock gates were your battlefield. You retire in 1912, 63 years old, 50 years in the docks, give or take. Longer than you ever expected to last. Longer than most men manage. They give you a small ceremony, which surprises you. The superintendent shakes your hand. A few of the older workers, men you trained decades ago, raise a glass in your honour at the prospect of Whitby. Someone makes a speech about your dedication, your fairness, your years of service. You don't know what to say, so you don't say much. They give you a small pension too, enough to live on if you're careful. Enough to keep the house in Shadwell, to buy food and coal and the occasional bottle of port from the vaults you used to manage. It feels strange, spending money on wine you once guarded like a dragon guards gold. You spend your days walking, along the river, through the streets you've known for half a century, past the pubs where you drank with Bill Garrett and Ned Holloway, both of them gone now. Bill died of a fever in '89. You spoke at his funeral, told stories about the wine vaults, about the day he took a chance on a farm boy from Kent. Ned never came back from Australia. You heard rumours that he died out there, in the bush somewhere, far from the river that had been his whole life. Time takes everyone eventually. That's the one thing you've learned for certain. The docks are still growing. The Great War comes and goes. You're too old to fight, but you watch the young men march off, so many of them from the streets you walk every day. Some of them come back. Many don't. The docks work overtime, moving supplies, munitions, everything the war machine needs. The river has never been busier. And then, after the war ends, King George V dock opens in 1921, the biggest yet. Deep water, modern facilities. Ships so large they would have seemed like floating cities to the men who worked these waters when you were young. Transatlantic liners, cargo vessels that can carry more in their holds than an entire fleet of the old sailing ships. You watch from the shore. An old man now, white-haired and stooped, leaning on a cane that once belonged to Morrison. The world has changed so much, and yet, in some ways, it hasn't changed at all. There are still men at the gates, still crowds of desperate souls, waving and shouting, hoping to be chosen. The casual system survives, despite everything, despite all the reforms and reorganisations, despite all the promises of progress. Some things, it seems, are harder to change than others. You die in 1934, peacefully, in your sleep, in the house in Shadwell that Sarah made into a home. Your children are there at the end. Your grandchildren too, crowded into the small bedroom, holding your hands, telling you stories about their lives, about the world outside that keeps changing faster than any of you can follow. Your last thought, if you have one, might be of that morning 72 years ago. The barge on the river, the smell of coal and sewage, the forest of masts rising against the grey sky. The moment you stepped onto the dock at Wapping and knew, somehow, that nothing would ever be the same. You never became rich. You never became famous. You never did anything that the history books would remember. But you survived. You built a life. You found love and meaning and purpose in a place that could have swallowed you whole. You raised children who raised children of their own. You left something behind. A family. A legacy. A story that will be told around dinner tables for generations to come. That's something. That's more than something. That's everything. And now, Daniel Webb, your story is over. But the story of the docks continues. The river keeps flowing after you're gone. The ships keep coming. The cargo keeps moving from one side of the world to the other. The great machinery of commerce doesn't pause for funerals. It doesn't stop for grief. It just keeps turning. Day after day. Year after year. The grandchildren you left behind grow up in a London you wouldn't have recognised. Motorcars clogging the streets instead of horses and carts. Electric lights blazing in windows instead of gas flames. Wireless sets bringing voices from across the world into living rooms. Aeroplanes in the sky, carrying mail and passengers to places that used to take months to reach by ship. The pace of everything has changed. Faster, louder, more urgent. The old rhythms of the docks, the ones you knew so well, are being overwhelmed by something new. Something that doesn't have time for tradition or patience or the slow accumulation of skill. But the docks themselves keep growing. More warehouses, more cranes, more of everything. By the late 1930s, the Port of London is the busiest in the world. More tonnage passes through than any other port in history. The empire's goods flow through these waters like blood through veins. Tea from India, wool from Australia, grain from Canada, rubber from Malaya, everything the world has to offer, arriving in the place where Daniel Webb once stood in the cold, waving his arms, hoping for a chance. The Webb name is known along the waterfront now, respected. Daniel's legacy, carried forward by blood and memory, and the stories the family tells about the old man who came from Kent with nothing and built a life from the mud and the cargo and the endless, endless work. But change is coming. A different kind of change. The kind that doesn't build. The kind that destroys. The newspapers are full of it. Germany, Hitler, the threat of war. The Webb grandchildren read the headlines with worry in their eyes. They remember the stories their grandfather told them, about the hard times, about the struggles, about what it means to survive when everything is falling apart. They don't know it yet, but they're about to learn those lessons for themselves. The summer of 1940 is hot and tense. Everyone knows what's coming. Everyone is waiting. And then, in September, the sky fills with fire. The bombs fall on a Saturday afternoon, September 7th, 1940. A day that will be remembered as Black Saturday, the beginning of the end for the London Docklands as they have existed for centuries. The German bombers come in waves, hundreds of them, darkening the sky like a plague of metal locusts. 348 bombers, escorted by 617 fighters, the largest air raid in history, aimed directly at the heart of London's trade. Their targets are strategic: the docks, the warehouses, the fuel depots and grain stores and shipping lanes that keep Britain alive. Destroy these, and you strangle the island, starve it into submission. The first explosions hit the Royal Docks around 4 in the afternoon. Within hours, the entire East End is burning. Flames leap hundreds of feet into the air. The smoke is so thick it blots out the setting sun. People standing on Hampstead Heath, miles away, later describe the eastern sky as glowing red, as if the river itself had caught fire. Thomas Webb is working at the West India dock when the sirens start. Daniel's grandson, 32 years old, with a wife and 2 children waiting for him in Poplar. He has his grandfather's eyes, people say, his grandfather's stubbornness, that same refusal to give up when things get hard. He'll need all of that tonight. The warehouse beside him takes a direct hit. The blast throws him against a wall. When he opens his eyes, the world is on fire. Flames everywhere. Men running, screaming, trying to escape the inferno. The air itself seems to be burning, thick with smoke and the smell of things that should never burn. Sugar, rum, paint, timber, pepper, rubber, all the cargo that has flowed through these docks for generations, now fuel for a fire that can be seen from 40 miles away. The rum burns blue and green. The sugar caramelizes, filling the air with a sickly sweetness that mixes with the smoke. And the death. Thomas runs. Through the chaos. Past bodies he doesn't look at too closely. Past buildings that are collapsing around him. Past the river itself, which has caught fire somehow. Burning rum spreading across the water like something from a nightmare. Something from the end of the world. He makes it home. Barely. His clothes are singed. His eyebrows are burned off. But he's alive. His wife is waiting in the Anderson shelter in the back garden, the children pressed against her, all of them listening to the bombs fall and the world end above their heads. The bombing continues for 57 nights. 57 nights of fire and death and destruction. The Luftwaffe returns again and again, drawn to the docks like moths to a flame. The strategic importance of the port makes it irresistible. Destroy the docks, and you cripple Britain's ability to wage war. The damage is beyond comprehension. 1/3 of all housing in the Docklands is destroyed. Warehouses that stood for a century are reduced to rubble in seconds. Cranes twisted like broken toys. Ships sunk at their moorings, blocking the very channels they were meant to navigate. The people suffer most of all. Thousands dead, tens of thousands homeless, families scattered, communities shattered, generations of history erased by high explosives and incendiary bombs. But they don't break. That's the thing about the people of the Docklands. They've survived poverty and disease and exploitation for centuries. They've been broken down and built back up more times than anyone can count. A few thousand bombs aren't going to finish them off. Thomas survives the war. His family survives. They spend nights in the underground stations, huddled with thousands of others, listening to the distant thunder of the raids. They emerge each morning to see what's left of their city, to dig through rubble, to carry on. That's what the people of the Docklands have always done. They carry on. The war ends in 1945. The bombs stop falling. The sirens go silent. For the first time in years, people can sleep without wondering if they'll wake up. And then, slowly, painfully, the rebuilding begins. The 1950s are years of recovery. Ships return to the river. Cargo flows again through the damaged but still functioning docks. Men gather at the gates, just like they did in Daniel Webb's time, waving and shouting, hoping to be chosen. Thomas works the docks through these years. He's older now, greyer, with a limp from a piece of shrapnel that never quite healed right. But he's still strong, still capable, still carrying on the tradition that started when a young man from Kent stepped off a barge in 1862. For a while, it seems like things might return to normal. The port of London is busy again. Trade is flowing. The empire is fading, yes, but the ships keep coming. The cargo keeps moving. Life goes on. But something is changing. Something that nobody quite understands yet. It starts with the ships. They're getting bigger, much bigger. The vessels that arrive in the 1960s are nothing like the ones that came before. Massive container ships, designed to carry standardized metal boxes that can be loaded and unloaded by crane, stacked on trucks, moved across the country without ever being opened. Containerization, that's what they call it. A revolution in shipping that will change everything. One container ship can carry what used to take a dozen conventional vessels. One crane operator can do the work of 100 dockers. The old skills, passed down through generations, suddenly don't matter anymore. The problem is, the old docks can't handle it. The channels are too shallow. The berths are too small. The locks that once seemed so modern are now obstacles, too narrow to accommodate vessels built for a different age. The entire infrastructure, built over centuries for a different kind of trade, is suddenly obsolete. The shipping companies start looking elsewhere. Tilbury, further down the river, with deeper water and more room to expand. Felixstowe, on the coast, with direct access to the open sea and room for the massive gantry cranes that containerization requires. Places that can accommodate the new ships, the new technology, the new way of moving goods around the world. The old docks start to close. East India Dock shuts down in 1967. St. Catherine Dock follows in 69, its ancient basins too small for modern shipping. The London Dock, where your grandfather once worked the wine vaults, closes in 1969 as well. Those endless underground tunnels, those millions of gallons of wine aging in the darkness, emptied out and abandoned. The West India Dock hangs on a little longer, fighting to survive, but by 1980, it's gone too. One by one, the docks that built an empire fall silent. The cranes stop moving, the gates close. The men who gathered there every morning have nowhere left to go. Thomas dies in 1973. He never sees the final closure, never sees the last ships leave, the last cranes stop moving, the last dockers walk away from the gates for the final time. Perhaps that's a mercy. Perhaps it would have broken his heart to watch it end. The numbers tell the story. In 1955, there were 32,000 registered dock workers in London. By 1973, there were 12,000. By 1980, barely any at all. Generations of skill, generations of tradition, generations of families who knew nothing but the docks. All of it swept away in less than 20 years. What's left behind is devastation. By the early 1980s, the Docklands are a wasteland. 22 square kilometres of derelict land, empty warehouses with broken windows, rusting cranes that will never lift another load, abandoned wharves where weeds grow through the cracks in the concrete. The people are gone too. The communities that once thrived here have scattered. Some moved to other parts of London, some left the city entirely, some simply faded away, unable to adapt to a world that no longer needed them. It looks like the end. It feels like the end. A century and a half of history, reduced to rubble and silence. But endings have a way of becoming beginnings. In July of 1981, the government creates something called the London Docklands Development Corporation. Its mission is ambitious, almost absurdly so. Take these 22 square kilometres of decay and transform them into something new, something vibrant, something that can carry London into the 21st century. The skeptics laugh. The old-timers shake their heads. You can't rebuild what's been destroyed. You can't bring back what's been lost. But the corporation isn't trying to bring back the past. It's trying to create a future. The work takes years, decades. It costs billions of pounds. There are setbacks and scandals and moments when the whole project seems doomed to fail. But slowly, impossibly, the Docklands begin to change. Canary Wharf rises from the old West India dock, a forest of glass and steel towers that would have seemed like science fiction to the men who once unloaded sugar and rum from the holds of sailing ships. Banks and financial firms move in, bringing money and jobs and a new kind of commerce. London City Airport opens on the site of the old Royal Docks, connecting the area to the world in ways that ships never could. The Docklands Light Railway threads through the streets, carrying passengers where cargo once travelled. New housing appears, luxury apartments in converted warehouses, modern developments on land that lay empty for years. Young professionals moving in, attracted by the waterfront views and the proximity to the city. The transformation is staggering. In 17 years, the Development Corporation creates over 120,000 new jobs. It builds roads and railways and parks and schools. It turns a wasteland into one of the most sought-after addresses in London. The old pubs are still there. Some of them. The Prospect of Whitby, the town of Ramsgate, the Grapes in Limehouse, where your grandfather once arranged to meet men for work that couldn't be discussed in daylight. They've been cleaned up, gentrified, turned into gastropubs serving craft beer and artisanal small plates. But if you look closely, you can still see traces of the past. The iron rings in the walls where ships once moored, the low ceilings and narrow passages built for men who spent their lives bent over cargo. The views of the river, unchanged despite everything, flowing on as it has for thousands of years. Today, a visitor walking through Canary Wharf might find it hard to imagine what came before. The gleaming towers, the bustling restaurants, the suited bankers rushing to meetings. It all seems so modern, so disconnected from history. But the history is there, if you know where to look. It's in the street names. West India Avenue, Lime Harbour, Marsh Wall. Names that remember what this place used to be, what it meant to the millions of people who lived and worked and died here. It's in the old warehouses that have been converted into museums and galleries, their walls still stained with the residue of the goods they once held. Sugar and tobacco and wine and spices, the treasures of an empire that no longer exists. It's in the stories that are still told, in pubs and homes and family gatherings, stories of grandfathers who stood at the dock gates, grandmothers who took in washing to make ends meet, great-uncles who worked the wine vaults or the sugar warehouses or the fog-shrouded river at night. These stories matter. They connect the present to the past. They remind us that the gleaming towers of today are built on the labour and sacrifice of yesterday. Daniel Webb knew this. Lying in his bed in Shadwell in 1934, watching his life draw to a close, he understood that he was part of something larger than himself. A story that began before he was born and would continue long after he was gone. The story of the docks, the story of London, the story of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, surviving against the odds, building lives from nothing but determination and hope. That story isn't over. It's never over. As long as the river flows and people gather on its banks, the story continues. New chapters are being written every day. New characters are arriving, just as Daniel once arrived, full of hope and fear and the desperate need to survive. The details change. The ships become planes, the warehouses become offices, the casual labourers become financial analysts and tech workers, and baristas serving coffee in converted dock buildings. But underneath it all, the fundamental story remains the same. People trying to make a life, people reaching for something better, people carrying on, day after day, because that's what people do. That's what Daniel did. That's what his children did, and their children after that. And somewhere in London tonight, someone is lying in their bed, in an apartment that was built on land where dockers once gathered at dawn. They're looking out at the lights of Canary Wharf, at the river that still flows past their window, at the city that never stops changing. They don't know the history beneath their feet. They don't know about the men who stood at the gates, or the ships that came from every corner of the world, or the fires that burned for 57 nights while the bombs fell. But the history knows them. It flows through everything they are, every street they walk, every building they enter, every breath of London air they draw into their lungs. We are all part of this story, whether we know it or not. We are all connected to the people who came before us, the ones who built and suffered and survived so that we could be here now. And someday, we too will be part of someone else's history. Our struggles will become their story. Our lives will be the foundation for whatever comes next. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. The river keeps flowing. The city keeps growing. The story keeps being told. And now, lying here in your own bed, in whatever corner of the world you call home, you're part of it too. Part of this long chain of human experience that stretches back through centuries and forward into futures we can't imagine. Close your eyes. Let the stories wash over you like water, like the Thames itself, carrying everything downstream, carrying you towards sleep. The docks are quiet now. The cranes have stopped moving. The ships have found their berths. Even the city is settling down, the traffic fading, the lights dimming, the great machinery of London winding down for the night. Everything rests eventually. Everything finds peace. Even you. Especially you. So let go of the day. Let go of your worries. Let the history you've heard tonight sink into your dreams, becoming part of you.